Okay. Good?
Push it a little closer.
Push it.
Yes. What's up, peers? Welcome back live to the World Crypto Network here at the Paralelní Polis Hackers Congress 2018. We already did one stream today, but one is boring. Let's do two. So another session, and we're going to kick it off.
2x.
2x, exactly. We're going to 2x the amount of or interviews that we're going to do, hopefully, in this stream as well. So we got here Giacomo and Peter. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks.
Yeah.
So, how do you like the conference so far? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it worth it?
It was great. One of the best conferences in the space last year and this year. Very, very different from other conferences. Also, very strange people in a good way.
Yeah.
And great talks.
Yeah.
Especially
Masks.
mine, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Well, you know, as usual, I finished my talk about 30 minutes prior to actually when I went on stage. So I found the rooms they had upstairs to go and just sit down, hang out with your friends, and madly finish your talk were really nice. It's a lovely vibe.
Yeah, right. And you know, these conferences are much nicer if you just talk to the people and maybe get some friends. Because if you have some friends, Peter, it would be great because then you can try out these Go tennis, which currently with your count of 0 friends is kind of
I was looking at these and I was just thinking, you know, this would be really cool if only I had friends to use it with. You know, but I live in the wilderness in Canada, so you know it's kind of useless.
Yeah, you can pretend, right?
I pretend to be friends with myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, and I don't know, on the Mesh network, this might apply as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, on the Mesh network, everyone assumes you're a loser anyway.
but seriously, like, I've been wondering about that for a long time. Mesh networks, Samurai Gotenna, Blockstream Satellite. Is this the perfect triangular for Bitcoin?
I mean, Bitcoin's one of those rare examples where mesh networks actually seem to work.
Oh.
Yeah, and the reason is like the thing that screws over mesh networks is routing. How is my Gotenna or whatever device I'm using going to figure out how to find a route to someone else on the other side of the planet? It's tough. It's a very tough computer science problem. But with Bitcoin, you know, everyone wants the same data. We're all looking at the same blockchain. So it all works very well up until we realize that on-chain transactions don't scale, and then the mesh networking routing problem comes back. But for a brief instant, we'll be doing just fine. And at least we'll keep in sync.
It's a flat mesh network in a way. But on top of that, there is Lightning, which will have to face a routing problem in a way. So it's possible.
Lightning doesn't actually scale because Lightning depends on Bitcoin. Thus, the size of the routing network in Lightning can never be more than Bitcoin UTXO-set, and that's sufficiently small they can just use brute force routing.
That's correct. And one possible hope is that maybe we have seen Bitcoin incentivizing, or even scam coins in a way, incentivizing research and development over theoretical fields that were staining since decades, but now with economic incentives, legit ones or even scammy ones. For example, in order to launch Zcash, you have to study more Zk snarks things. So we have incentives to study theoretical problems of computer science in a different way. Maybe routing on top of Lightning, even if easier, could boost some kind of generic routing resource, dynamic routing resource.
See, I like your optimism, but UPS and like many other major companies with billions of dollars worth of revenue need routing to work. We don't necessarily need more money thrown at this problem. And again, I mean, Lightning doesn't actually have a routing problem. The maximum size of the routing is fixed. It's small enough to just use simple methods. You know, the reason why Lightning so-called has a routing problem is because people on RBTC wanted to have one.
But so you're the Bitcoin naysayer, and you always explain why things do not work. But do you think there is a possibility between zero mesh network, like super centralized ISPs, and an actual mesh network, maybe some kind of middle ground where we can have at least a better internet today?
This is not a fake product.
Okay.
You know, this really works from what I know. I've never used one, but you know, my understanding is these really do work. But when you look at the back, you know, it's a little mesh here with, I don't know, what is it, 1, 2, 10-ish, say, nodes. 10 nodes is the sort of thing where you can just keep the whole routing table in memory. And just like Lightning, you can easily route.
So we
It's
can have
when things get
small
bigger.
mesh networks.
Yeah, small works.
Better
After all, the internet is a mesh network. And the internet has a massive routing scalability problem, which is that the core internet routers have to keep the entire routing table in memory. And every time the internet gets a little bigger, the amount of memory needed gets a little bigger. Well, that literally doesn't scale, and that's one of the reasons why I say IPv6, where you're able to get more what they call link aggregation, which a ton of people behind one network, one routing prefix. So ultimately, well, why does all this work? Well, because we can put so many more bits down one fiber in a feasibly way that's fast enough that that's one route, and thus small enough to then keep in memory for everyone else.
Do you remember the building on Bitcoin and path proposal of like seeding things and building dynamic paths? out of that?
yeah, the one he was going on and on about ants or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It was probably not very.
Yeah.
He made some mistakes about Lightning itself, so it was
Yeah.
not really fitting for Lightning. But maybe it was for a more generical IP routing problem. It would be something interesting.
I didn't fully understand that one, but someone who apparently did, what they basically told me is, yes, this is a plausible advance in routing, but the guy doesn't actually have proper demos yet and things like that. So,
Yeah.
maybe we'll find out later. Because after all, computer science gets
That's
better.
a possibility Peter thought. That's like the
Yeah.
closest thing to success. you can have.
Yeah. So we fixed it. We've solved all the problems. We can go home now.
Oh, come on. I've been more positive about things. I mean, your new baby, I thought she was lovely.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So maybe talking about your baby. How has it been to being a Bitcoin father?
That was great, unexpected. When BTC Mir created the account, we didn't expect that to have almost as much followers as me in 2 weeks.
I hate to say it, but kind of cuter.
Yeah, I know. But we looks very. People say that she really looks like me, so she's beautiful. No, it's fine. In Riga and Baltic on Badger, she was next to the stage all the time. She made some very, very useful contribution to the discussion, also she is able to say AM, which is just halfway of scam. So it's
yeah.
almost
right
a
there,
Bitcoiner.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
But no ICO yet?
So we did plan a initial child offering, like a baby shower where people give us Bitcoin in exchange for nothing. But people already committed to like the pre-sale, but we didn't feel like going further that direction. So I was shy, and so we did. Otherwise, we would have
You can monetize later.
we will monetize later.
right
Yeah,
away.
exactly. Like
Backporting.
Yeah, school.
Traditionally, you usually monetize around age 50 or so. Your age. And then they record you in retirement.
So there is time, and we missed the opportunity to have a Lambo stroller, but maybe later.
You always have another.
Yes.
And I mean, with the Lightning Network, we can have these dispensaries that once you pay the invoice, then like the M&Ms or the candy comes out. So for the baby shower, maybe a Lightning thing that spurts out the baptizing water.
Yes. I hope Luke is not listening to this.
But surely, given you're only going to have the baptizing water like once or twice in your life, surely you could pay an on-chain payment for that.
That's correct.
Yeah, but it's not instant confirmation. So.
You have to.
Look,
Anyway, no.
it's a priest. Wouldn't you go trust as your confirmation? I mean, you should go know this child for a bit longer than
Also, in Catholicism, baptism is not instant confirmation because you have to wait for the confirmation when you are older.
Holy Communion, then confirmation.
Yeah, then confirmation.
Yeah.
So confirmation in Catholicism comes much later. The confirmation on chain on Bitcoin. It's like 15 years later.
Unless you pay a really low fee.
We need to increase block time. That's what you're saying.
Let's say that.
Well, we could.
So baptism is like the mempool. You're being dipped into the mempool.
You
and
are in the
eventually
purgatory,
confirmed.
man. Yeah,
Oh,
you still
that's
don't go
good.
to hell if you die, but then the confirmation. So zero confirmation death is kind of safe.
Yeah.
But then after confirmation is so much better.
But I mean, the thing is, right now, payment or transaction fees are tiny, right? You can pay 1 Satoshi per byte. So I don't even know how we can delay the transaction any further. So maybe some check sequence verifier, some end lock time, that might help.
This is actually a big flaw in Bitcoin, which is that the calculations that figure out what fee is, they're unsigned. They should be signed. I should be able to create a transaction that has a negative fee, and then miners voluntarily give me money by mining them.
Would that be a negative interest rate in Bitcoin?
Be fucking socialism.
Well, okay, but to fees especially, and to the argument of socialism, right? We have previously the transaction fees have been subsidized by, of course, inflation, right? The Coinbase block reward. So when this inflation stops, the direct costs have to be paid by the person who is doing the transaction.
But there's a problem with saying that kind of line argument, which is, all right, the direct cost. Bitcoin, of course, is difficulty, and those direct costs can be whatever difficulty it is. So your real issue is not how do you go pay miners, it's how do you ensure that miners get paid. Because Bitcoin would run just fine. People might be paying like 1/1000th of a cent fees for every transaction they make. And what that really means is that then Bitcoin becomes easy to absorb percentage tax. Not that Bitcoin stops working, per se. Bitcoin would look like it works just fine, but the amount of security available would keep going down. And that's more likely to be true, of course, with an unlimited block size, because then there's nothing preventing fees from just going to zero. But I would still argue, even with the limited block size, it's a much better built-in suspenders thing to just leave inflation on indefinitely. You know, it's 4% right now, we don't seem to notice.
Too late for that, unfortunately. I mean, there's a Bitcoin schedule
Well,
cannot be modified
sure
after,
can.
so.
In like 30 years when it starts failing.
Yeah.
A lot of things can change
This
in
is
30
heresy,
years.
and I will not listen anymore to that. But also, you have to consider that you have to take into account the purchasing power of Bitcoin fees, not just the nominal value. So and of the block reward. So the block reward could just stay the same in purchasing power for a long, long time, not forever, because arguably the world economy will not grow as fast as the halving process.
I mean,
I
and
think
it literally goes to zero at some point.
it literally with the Satoshi,
Yeah.
but maybe we could have like sub Satoshi.
So now you're the one arguing for inflation. It was going to go to zero, and now you're like, well, you know, maybe we could just in the back door. Just,
That's asymptotic. That's asymptotic inflation. You want like a linear
the code
inflation.
very clearly says that at some point the inflationary reward is zero.
But the
you just
social
argued for something other than that.
Okay, but also one of the
I
points.
think you're a filthy central banker.
Bastard. But there was somebody like there was a attack scenario in Stanford about miners starting to steal each other block without building the chain because the fees are so high compared to the reward. But then the problem is
that wasn't first proposed in Stanford. I proposed that
you proposed the
many years
scenario
ago, and I probably stole it from someone else.
But what I don't understand about that scenario is that it assumes that the fees of the new mempool transaction are not as high as the fees in that block. But if all the fees are very, very large, so if you have like a strange, atypical high fee, that could be the case. But if you have very high fees everywhere, so that you can just ditch the block and get the mempool.
Basically, it's sort of what does the curve look like?
Yeah.
Or if they're all the same fee, then having the fixed size block reward helps you there. Now, having the fixed block size helps you there. Now, I forget if I actually made this argument, so this is like 2013 or something, but if with an unlimited block size, you could always just go and revert the next guy's block, add his transaction to yours and rebroadcast.
Plus your new.
Yeah. You can always do this. And the other thing I did, which is one of the features I came up with for Bitcoin, and it kind of took the longest to ever get implemented, was Bitcoin transactions. These days, a lot of wallets are setting the walk time field, right, to the most recent block, right, which means that, for instance, there's a block of transactions, and then I make a transaction. That transaction won't be able to go into the previous block. You have to create another block on top of the previous one, or create 2 blocks in a row to be able to include my new transaction. So that's helping ratchet things forward and always push things forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, problem solved. Other problems?
I would still
done.
say, like, that still fails in cases, for instance, in one high fee transaction. You create a high fee transaction, there's every reason to just reverting in blocks. It's just so much safer if you just have some predictable inflation. Go pay for it.
If we had that, but too late. If you could speak with Satoshi before, we're discussing with Adam in 2001.
If you want me to put a number on it, I would give it something like 50-50 chance. On the order of 30-40 years, we wind up with, say, 0.1% inflation.
Also, that's your fault. I mean, you were practically already inventing Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so you could just talk with Satoshi in 2008 and avoid this.
As we know, I'm Craig Wright in there from Satoshi. And yes, it's my fault. I picked a bad thing. It was a dumb thing for marketing. But, you know, we can fix problems. You know, we can admit our mistakes.
We cannot.
Okay, so where's the trade-off? How can we say is Bitcoin more important that it is unchangeable or that it works?
Bitcoin is more important that it's unchangeable to the extent that it works, and that if it's really, really, really doesn't work, we can change it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Right? There's not one or the other.
If the alternative is that, of course.
Yeah.
But even in a scenario of one single very high fee transaction, still it's like those game theories where, in theory, there's never a solution, but practically somebody will do something irrational at center point to move
it's better
things.
than that, because it nearly never happens. Someone bothers to implement the code to do it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So nobody can exploit it because it's so unlikely and so rare. But still, it's something that designing Bitcoin in retrospect may be a fixed. It will also avoid the singularity of the algorithm.
And I should point out, even if you have inflation with sufficiently high fee transaction, that still breaks down.
Yeah.
Because the block reward is a certain amount. If you do a transaction that pays a fee of 1,000 times that block reward, there's still that incentive. And there's no way you can limit block reward.
Yeah.
Because after all, you could have a block reward situation because I mined a transaction that has an output that the miner knows how to spend.
Also, there is the marketing consideration that even if a fixed block reward is anyway deflationary in the long run, so it's still hard money, but the existence of the 21 million meme was marketing-wise helpful to explain
But
people.
it could have been the existence of the 0.1% meme. Do you want to be part of the 0.1% revolution?
No, but look,
I'm not an expert in marketing, but I don't think that's.
I'm pretty sure we could have come up with a meme for it. And after all, if it wasn't competing with that really good 21 million meme,
That's correct.
you know, that would be so much
So
better.
we will see the fixed supply altcoins trying to be better.
Well, Monero has, of course, tail emission.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I think there's a few others like it, and no one seems to complain about Monero.
Well,
I mean,
but
maybe it's because Fluffy Pony is just such a better meme.
Probably.
So what would you call if there was a sub Satoshi? Would there be a specific name you'd call it? Anything you'd like to pick?
Submarine.
Submarine.
A yellow
yeah.
submarine.
I'm very bad at marketing.
Subset.
Subsat. Yeah.
Yeah.
subset. Oh.
Keep it simple.
Let's call it subset.
Ah.
Yeah, so Samurai just kicked out fiat. What about that?
That's good marketing and bad user experience.
So it was ideologically speaking, it was like super hyped by that. I was like, this is great. This is really very very maximalist. As a user of Samurai, I use Greenbits and Samurai, and it was bad. But one of the considerations that Samurai developers did is that we should use invoices. So the merchant should start actually sending out invoices with the conversion rate inside. It's not normal and not healthy in the long run that you have like to have a lot of back and forth in which you tell me the address and the price in US dollars. I propose you a US dollar rate, exchange rate. You confirm that is okay for you and I'm not just picking the wrong rate, and then I pay. While on the other hand, with a better Bitcoin protocol, payment protocol, not the shitty stuff that is done by BitPay, but with a good, with a Lightning invoicing system or with good Bitcoin payment protocols, you could have the merchant giving you with the address also everything you need. And then you check, you just needed to have the mental math in order to understand that you are not paying too much in Bitcoin terms, and you do that.
Well,
So-
keep in mind, so the URL QR code method, it can tell you how much you should pay. You know, Lightning also works the same way. So effectively, what having fiat conversion does is it says, all right, they've given you an invoice, they want you to pay to this address, this much Bitcoin, and by the way, we're now going to double check, what does that probably look like in fiat?
Exactly.
That user experience is really good. Having like your counterparty provide what they think the exchange rate is, I don't think actually adds to it. I mean, it's definitely better than having no exchange rate at all, but it still makes it so easy to, oh yeah, exchange rate, oh wait a second, I just missed a zero.
Yeah, no,
right?
I was thinking about that. I was thinking, I mean, in a way, this move could force merchant to user to start using a proper merchant-generated payment request.
The point is, everyone already does this.
Not the payment request.
QR code is effectively merchant-generated payment request. It says, please pay this address, this amount.
Yeah, but if you ask me to give you now $5 Bitcoin, I've seen it also here in the conference.
But that's really
that
informal situations. And if you were to ask me to pay you $5 in Bitcoin with Lightning, that's how it would end up working.
Yeah.
Right, because you put in the amount.
Yeah.
In the Lightning.
And I think that's superior.
Which, again, is superior, but Samurai is making even that good experience worse by not having that double check.
But it's so cool, philosophically speaking.
And
I can bear the cost of that.
And their argument is
that's
that people, when they receive, let's say, 0.01 Bitcoin, right, and they realize, okay, this is like $60 worth. A couple days later, this is $65, or this is $55.
Well, that's a problem in their UI. If I were them, I would have solved that problem by saying, all right, let's go figure out what the conversion rate at the time was. And then just keep keep track of that.
That's a proposal that I also
did on the transaction.
Yeah. I also did this proposal to Green Address. Like most of the time, we still use US dollars unit of account. There's no cheating there
Yet,
but still. And so when you look back, I especially for pizza related borrowing or credit, I just I credited you $5. Give me back $5, and you don't find the transaction because the fiat nomination is the current one and not the historical one. So that was already a very bad US choice. In a way, I'm not sure what I'm saying, but price feeds, automatic price feeds to wallets could be an attack vector because they are not signed from exchanges. So it's also a security problem.
As much as I've said this, if Bitcoin Core had a pull request to go add price, whatever, I'll bet you they'd be nacked on the viewpoint of we don't want to deal with this. We've historically never dealt with it, so we're not going to deal with it.
That's
I'll bet you that would be the argument. Whereas I'd say there probably should be something in between where people can manually add them.
Yeah, like plugins. Plugins
with a protocol.
gold.
Key things, come up with a protocol where they're signed and non-reputable.
That's great. Open timestamped, signed.
No. Open timestamps.
Why not?
It's not a timestamp application. You need to have a blockchain for this.
No, okay.
All right, you're an exchange. I want to be able to know that you're giving me the same exchange rate as everyone else.
Timestamp every kind of exchange.
Timestamping is better than nothing, but it's still not good.
You need pro publication.
Remember, open timestamps sucks for nearly everything.
I'm trying to promote open timestamps. It's cool.
If you offer, I'll get my stickers out.
well, so we clearly never need an ICO. We almost never need a blockchain, and we almost never need the open timestamp.
Blockchains are very useful. Blockchains you can make use of blockchain for almost anything. If you think of blockchain as a chain of blocks.
Yeah, exactly. There is the Peter's definition of a blockchain, which is anything which is chained somehow. In that sense, blockchain is very useful because any kind of, when you have to protect your bike from thieves, you use a blockchain. That's the definition. So in that case, being unblockchain is completely wrong. I would use a stricter definition in which
with all bunch of other bullshit. I don't really agree.
Exactly.
Your stricter definition would be slightly different than her stricter definition and his stricter definition, and Vitalik's stricter definition because Vitalik wants to make money on ICO.
But there is an easy solution out of that. Mine is right and every other definition is wrong. So
my one's a subset of everyone's definition, unless mine's always right.
By definition, no, you're larger. You're calling blockchain a lot of stuff that I am not calling.
But what I'm defining blockchain as is a subset, because everyone agrees that a blockchain has a chain of blocks in there somewhere.
Still not both.
So what do you think of the pricing upstairs then? So we talked about Samurai removing the US dollar pricing, but upstairs we've still got the check pricing but without Bitcoin.
Well, but the great thing is, I don't know what the check pricing conversion even is.
Yeah.
But what I do see is in my wallet, which is a Claire, which is what I use, it just shows the USD. I say, is it really worth to pay, I don't know, $4 for a spritz? Sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Also, he's Canadian and he's watching USD price, so
Yeah.
that's something
Well,
about
my
stickiness
company,
of
I bill in USD. I don't bill in Canadian dollars.
units of account are very difficult to replace. Bitcoin can go there eventually, but it's a long run and it's not something we should really rush.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, money moves from being a collectible, just something that people like to have just because of the fun of having it, to then being a store of value, to then being a medium of exchange, and eventually, last but certainly not least, it's the unit of account thing. But can we speed this up? Does a move like Samurai Wallet actually help in promoting this? Because I do think it is so, because I calculate a lot in Bitcoin.
I don't think so. I think it just means more people are going to use Bitcoin and think, this is really confusing and annoying.
Well,
I would give Samurai Wallet to beginner.
I would.
Too confusing.
However, I did see that a UK MP tweeted that he actually used Samurai Wallet to send Bitcoin, which I thought was pretty cool.
And how crazy was this UK MP?
I'm not too sure, but probably quite crazy, I'd say.
So in a way, Samurai Wallet is not targeted as a new buy wallet anyway. So it's like it's still pre-beta. It's still it crashes. It's wonderful. It's secure, but it crashes a lot. It's a lot of very new features like
The
privacy
phrase
features.
crashes a lot almost inevitably means there's something wrong with it that means it's not as secure as they want it to be. Secure software does what it's supposed to do, it just works.
There are there is a part which is, I think you can put more attention in the key management part than you put in operative system things. I mean,
chances are there's something in there that could be exploited as a security hole if it's crashing. Crashes is always a bad sign.
It did crash a lot, not recently actually. I don't know. I think it's a good wallet, but even the privacy feature that are there, they are not for new buys. So I will not suggest. I don't know what the answer would be if you asked me what is a good newbie wallet. Maybe my answer would be it doesn't exist yet. It's either good or for newbies.
Coinbase?
Well,
good.
I mean, if it helps them buy Bitcoin in the first place, it's not that bad. But actually, I'd say the wallet that seems to be more new friendly than most, in with some wire considerations, I found to be Claire, because there's Lightning, and then Lightning just kind of works.
Yeah,
agreed.
Lightning's
There is a user experience that the newbies can understand better than choose the fee and wait for the confirmation time.
I wouldn't say it's that good. I mean, there's a whole bunch of rough edges there, but the parts where it works work really well, and it just, well,
Did you try Zap on mobile?
I think I have, no.
Me neither.
No iOS, which kind of sucks.
Well, almost nobody. There is almost nothing on iOS, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh well, so at least they got one app now. But I mean, the user interface looks quite pretty, right? Quite slick. I also do like the new Lightning, like the desktop Lightning app. With the new UX, with the cleared color destination between on-chain, which is the Bitcoin yellow-orange thing, and then Lightning, which is purple. So I do like the clear distinction and the invoice itself that you generate. Either it's a normal on-chain address, then it switches to the orange, to the on-chain menu, or if you scan the Lightning invoice, it recognizes that and moves automatically to Lightning. So do you think that, or how can we further kind of like intermingle these two or first and second layers to make the user experience more nice?
Get more people accepting things in Lightning. I mean, it's kind of funny, like this conference, I've got this great Lightning wallet, and then I got to go dick around with on-chain transactions the whole time.
And not even SegWit. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Over 1.5 years. That's not bullshit. Bullshit.
Although I shouldn't talk given my Python Bitcoin library. Yeah, say what's for kind of whatever. But I think it should be depreciated. Python's a terrible language.
In a way, I mean, something's slowing down. I was talking with Lawrence now more Green Andres, and something's slowing down a little bit. The rush for integrated Lightning is L2 actually. So L2 is such an interesting proposal, making Watchtower easier, making multi-party channel easier. That it actually sucks to do a lot of complex things with the normal contract when you can do something better with SIGASH no input. So maybe just like people could do possibly some kind of Lightning experiment before SegWit, but everybody was waiting for SegWit. Maybe the SIGASH no input thing will slow down a little bit rush to implement Lightning.
God knows what they're going to come up with next.
Yeah. We want
know.
Moon
We've got
now.
L2, but we really got to wait for L3.
But that doesn't like write as nice as L2. So we should just keep it there and not invade any further.
Right. That's actually a good argument. Well, he just picks something L2 done.
Yeah.
Giacomo, the BS Foundation. Why?
It's just B. No, it's
funny. I thought BS seemed better.
Yeah, the Twitter profile of BS is more active than ours.
Yeah.
So I was very, very happy of the community reaction against me. I was never so happy to be shitted upon for many, many days because it's.
What about your new baby? Like.
Yeah, but like let's say that between the BTC baby and Rodolfo, I mean size matter. Anyway, it was a very healthy reaction, and it was a very helpful reaction. All this the B experiment blown just out of proportion because we were not expecting this kind of positive reaction by let's say advisors. The thing was pretty simple. So I managed to use for-profit corporation to give donation to Bitcoin development for 3 years. It was very messy, so I was searching for a better, more efficient way to do that. Alina was searching for something similar, and a bunch of very famous Bitcoin people in Riga 1 year ago was also searching for something similar. So we said, okay, let's do something together. We were not expecting this kind of importance, perception, and the reaction from the community was an healthy sign. Like everything that could be perceived as an attack is an attack prima facie. I'm fine with that. Also, it's a good thing for us to be kept responsible and just not feel too much entitled. And also, it's a good plausible deniability thing. Like if somebody comes to us saying you should do this stuff, we can say no. You see, they're crazy. They will kill us. We cannot. The community is against that. So it's a very good plausible deniability thing for us. And third, from an aesthetical point of view, the kind of reaction was magnificent. Like the No Foundation hat, the BS Foundation, the E Foundation mocking us with Ethereum. I'm so proud of the community right now. Go on and kill me. I appreciate that.
See, with the Bitcoin Foundation, the original one, well, my big criticism of them was really when they moved from being involved in politics to trying to be involved directly in core development. And I was like, this can't be a good idea. You're going to centralize this stuff. So if you're in a situation where the core devs hate your guts and think the B Foundation is a terrible thing that needs babies, that could be a great outcome. Because then you can do your fundraising, you can do whatever political stuff, you can do whatever grant stuff you need. And you can always go tell anyone who tries to get you to do something, yeah, they hate my guts, I have no real power.
Yeah, exactly. Plausible deniability. But also we don't want to touch core development. We may decide to assign some bounty to Bitcoin Core testing or bug fixing, but development is something that in the long run, this is controversial, but I think that in 5 years we should not have Bitcoin developers, Bitcoin Core developers. Maybe this is not very, it's not
it should stagnate.
Yeah.
You would hope at some point it becomes feature complete.
You don't have TCP/IP core developers, and internet does work. So I want to sponsor open timestamps, which is useless as we learn. But I like to sponsor anyway, or a Lightning application, or safe multi-sig practices. This kind of stuff as for development is concerned, but not really Bitcoin Core stuff.
I stopped working on Bitcoin Core because I kind of had a list of things I wanted to go do, and I got through to the end of the list. I was like, I could come up with more stuff to do, or I could go do more important things that are built on top.
No, I think it was incompetence that you
Well,
left.
yeah, partly, because I'm not competent enough to go work on Schnorr. I'd like to see Schnorr, but I'm not enough of cryptography to go do it. I have a fine arts degree and part of a physics degree. And he has much more of a physics degree than I do, that's for sure.
But no fine arts, so I feel fear about it.
So what's a feature you're most looking forward to coming to Bitcoin?
Personally, I'm super excited about SIGAS no input because really L2 is very, very cool. Many of the things it didn't very play super understandable for me in the Lightning security model are made way better with L2, and also multi-party channels are scaled much better. And also, I would like to see the emergence of some kind of generalization of graph root and taproot and mask concepts. I love all these concepts, but they are always like different takes on the same problem, or generalizing some kind of smarter serialization of the address of the hash that you are proving when you spend. I think that it also connects somehow with your previous DEX work.
Yeah, but the point I would make is sort of the reverse, like the reverse of it, where everything I'm interested in, all the projects have, not only could have they been implemented on Bitcoin version 0.1, they could have been implemented on Bitcoin version -0.1. Because in very early pre-release version of Bitcoin, Satoshi didn't have scripts. It was just public keys.
Yeah.
Scripts were, as far as we know, added relatively late in the development process. And the stuff I've worked on, like open timestamps and proof marshal, they don't even need scripts to work. They use Bitcoin purely as sort of a commitment and publication layer, nothing else. And all of the logic is not quite off-chain per se, but client-side. Most of the data isn't even published publicly. It's passed from one entity to another. And I think that's a much more exciting model. And it also gets rid of a whole lot of political debate, a whole lot of governance. I can go do my thing, you can go do your thing. And it doesn't matter what the core protocol is, it doesn't have to change. Now Lightning can't do that. Lightning does need certain things to be implemented in Bitcoin. We've got most of the way there. Some stuff more needs to be done for L2, but they can go do their thing, I can go do my thing, and I don't need to ask permission.
The trade-off there is that you get more freedom to experiment, more flexibility, but you lose some kind of coordination. Like one of the good thing about blockchain is that they don't scale, but they force everybody to stay on the same standard. So that basically reduces the Babel effect of like in many other kind of software, you don't have critical mass because everybody can do their standard.
That's a very interesting, I think a very fair criticism of the client-side model of validating stuff, where you don't necessarily know that you're actually using the same implementation.
Yeah.
And so much of the software engineering that I've kind of worked my way through and might succeed at one point has been figuring out, well, how do you define protocols better to make sure that you and I are actually using the same protocol, even though it may be a different implementation of it. And of course, as we found out in Bitcoin Core and Ethereum and other stuff,
hopefully
implementations are tough to recreate.
Yeah, to recreate and to. Hopefully, we are going to see how this plays out with the RGB project. So we were paid to do this core recon implementation. Then we discussed it with Peter, and Peter explained us the client-side validation model. And so one of the developers now is trying to do a entire client-side version of the core recon concept, which is called RGB. And there is like a working Rust library that I pushed it like a few days ago. And maybe, I'm very skeptical about tokens in general. But at least it's a very good excuse to experiment on this design, which has a beautiful privacy and scalability trade-off.
And so how about the inverted Bloom filters that are being used in Neutrino?
That's great. We are actually in RGB. Alekos is also using client-side filtering. It's something along the same philosophy. So you should have the client more responsible to do stuff and delegate to other people the less things that you can. So of course it increases the validation cost for you, but not for everybody else, for things that are better for you. Also, the normal SPV is terrible for privacy, and it's really terrible for privacy. And Neutrino is better for privacy.
And, I like to use the analogy of the telephone versus internet. The telephone network put all the intelligence in the core of the network, and the devices you used to interact with it were so dumb you could take a telephone from 1920 and plug it into a jack right now, and in most countries it would still work. That's true in Canada. I've actually done it, and it's that's how stupid the telephones are. Whereas internet, the core of it is dead simple. TCP/IP is, well, for that matter, IP is a relatively simple protocol. And in theory, the only thing in the internet is IP, not even TCP/IP, which technically is a layer on top.
It's like a network of internet.
Yeah, it's a lightning network of internet in a sense. But the devices you connect to it are incredibly intelligent. I've got more computing power in my phone than existed in the entire world probably, I don't know, 40 years ago or something.
Stop with the
protocol's
bragging.
same.
Stop with the bragging. Come on.
Oh yeah. This is like a real top-notch phone there. You know, you couldn't even get it unless you paid about $500.
Talking about hardware, we just talked to Todd Weaver, CEO of Purism. What are your thoughts on that?
They've got a tough problem. I mean, they, the big criticism of Purism is that they don't live up to the claim of being open. But the reason why they don't live up to the claim is because Intel isn't open. And what are their alternatives? You know, they want to ship a laptop that people can run the apps that they already have on. You know, CubeOS is the same deal. I mean, I use Cubes, and just the other day there was a post on their development mailing list where one of the developers basically said, "Look, we'd love to add support for like PowerPC and all these more open things, but nobody has hardware for it." You know, so you kind of get this whole chicken and egg thing, and just the technology that goes into making a modern laptop is a very, very high bar. You know, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still very, very difficult, and there's just not many options for Purism. So, I mean, I kind of wish them the best of luck, but it's a tough problem, and from what I know, it's not like they're going to get Intel to go open up the details of the management engine and other things.
I think they're working on it.
They've been working on it for a long time.
They will, 2 weeks.
You know?
Yeah. But maybe, I mean, one of the, I also try to play the optimist here. So one of the things that could help us here is some kind of a technological breakthrough about very, very low level hardware stuff. So we are using a design for chip that is, at this point, probably pretty old. So we can expect maybe some kind of important jump, and maybe that could be a good timing for new competitors to try to build from scratch a new electronic stack that is actually more thought for adversarial in adversarial terms from the beginning. So right now to use technology that was thought into the centralized just trust Intel model to make it work with adversarial models is kind of difficult. While and it's also, it never ends. You always go back, and at a certain point you are stuck with Intel trusting them. While if we have a new generation of low-level computation, maybe we can try to push something there.
Well, so the part I'd be optimistic about is that, as far as we know, strong AI doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And if you want to write, say, a hardware level built deep into the microprocessor, built into the CPU, whatever, exploit that takes over arbitrary software, you need strong AI. You know, if I'm worried about Intel burying something into an Intel CPU that's going to steal my Bitcoins, assuming I've bought hardware that was created in the past prior to them knowing what I'd run on it,
Yeah. Old stuff.
it's effectively impossible for them to do that compromise. Now, what they can do is they can do things like, say, put radio chips in. You know, your Wi-Fi's a risk. There's a bunch of stuff that's a risk. But at least those things are easy enough to mitigate. You know, you pull the radios out.
And you have hardware kill switches on the chassis.
Yeah, and that part of Purism, I think, works really well.
Or you go in the desert with a RV like Peter with a Faraday cage, and that's very easy to do.
Yeah. But at least I could. I mean, the budget for the Zcash, my part of the Zcash trusted setup was on the order of like $6,000 to get, other than the software problems they had, a very, very good result. I mean, I'm quite confident that assuming the software I ran wasn't backdoored, the end result there was probably not backdoored. Unfortunately, the deterministic builds of that are screwy, which is another matter, but the part I did, at least, was fairly easy to achieve.
So with the current hardware and technology, what would you recommend for the end user, anyone in the audience, would be the best kind of combination to use to have a safe experience when transacting in Bitcoin?
I was really hoping you'd leave it a bit within Bitcoin, because then I could just suggest you use a credit card or something. I'm sorry, but there aren't good answers.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of it might be limit your risk, but don't use just one wallet.
Yeah, less wrong answers. Like try to mitigate the risk, spreading it to different surfaces. Like if you use two other wallets from two different producers, with maybe one tails distribution on an air gap PC, and you have a 303 and you have a good backup, because let's be real, many of the people are losing Bitcoin not because they are robbed, but because they are losing access to Bitcoin. So you have to protect you from yourself as well. So if you have good backup plan, maybe like a check signal verify unlock in the future with a 3 of 3 right now. It's a little bit expensive as script, and there's a bit non-standard. So
I think right now you're already, because you're talking about something non-standard, you're immediately talking about a relatively complex system.
Yeah, so you
Frankly,
cannot build
I just have spending money on some wallet that I'm not sure how bothered to make a backup with the seed for. But it's money I can afford to lose.
Yeah.
And then more substantial money isn't something I just don't touch
So
very much.
thresholds.
On a laptop,
You
I can
also
do
risk
something else.
thresholds.
So you should have modular solutions. Your solution for your family wealth should not be the same for your everyday silver pocket.
So you want to not keep your eggs all in one basket, have multiple wallets, so that if you lose one or anything happens,
Just don't make it enough that you start getting, not diligent on actually backing things up.
yeah.
2 or 3 is probably plenty.
So be poor. If you're poor, you cannot. You cannot be
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
I mean, there aren't necessarily good answers to this.
Yeah.
So multi-coiners diversify their portfolio in different shitcoins. Bitcoiners, we diversify our UTXOs on different wallets.
Yeah.
How about the little chip that China put into the RAM?
Allegedly, China.
Allegedly.
I mean, it's a plausible story. Of course, keep in mind how quality Bloomberg's reporting is on Bitcoin.
Really good.
Yeah. Just get every detail right. So
I
I'm sure they're just as accurate on this.
During the user-activated soft fork, we didn't, or not we, but like the WCN did a 8-hour live stream of this event, and that was actually streamed on Bloomberg. So I guess that time the reporting was quite good.
There you go. Yeah, technically. Yeah.
So in a way, you could consider comforting. I mean, we were talking about Intel being basically able to backdoor anything if they have enough intelligence to make sense of the data they get. To have some different interest counteracting Intel, I mean, you can be attacked twice, but it could be. I mean, at least you can use a multisig with a China backdoor and an Intel backdoor, hoping that they don't collude. So maybe
when I was in grade 5 and I'd get bullied by the guys who were more preppy and the guys who were more sporty, having the two groups really made me feel better. And it certainly wasn't as good as just getting a growth spurt and being able to beat the shit out of other kids.
But you cannot have a multi-sig bully defense, so maybe this is different.
I'm pretty sure it just means they're using things that were insecure because of Intel screw-up and insecure because of Supermicro.
Double insecurity, 2x.
Yeah. No, I think actually the more interesting part of the story is how utterly insecure Supermicro servers are known to be. They ship them with management interfaces with default passwords on the Ethernet ports. They had full access to everything. Right there, and not to mention, the default passwords weren't even necessarily documented in some cases. They were quite literally backdoors. I think that's the kind of thing where all you can solve that with is early product liability. That is so incompetent that engineers should be getting criminal charges for that. Much the same way as if I designed a bridge that fell down after the first stiff breeze, I would certainly not be an engineer anymore. They're not good answers to this. But
so do you think there'll be the ability to print your own hardware anytime soon? No.
I'm sorry, but modern microprocessors are magic.
Yeah.
We have feature size. To make a microprocessor useful, even just enough like a Raspberry Pi thing, you need serious magic in chemistry and physics and all this just to get the silicon in the right way.
Yeah.
To have something competitive. I mean, modern CPUs have feature widths where the size of a feature on the chip is fixed. It doesn't have an error margin because it's a countable number of atoms. And you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 40. All right, 40 atoms wide.
That's wide enough.
Yeah, you want to 3D print that?
Yeah, well,
you get your tweezers out?
Wait. Biotech. So we will be able to download the DNA of a biological chip, and we will basically have to grow it like a plant. We put it in the water.
I am willing to accept biotech is actually a feasible way to get around this. and that might be the solution. On the other hand, if we can control biotech to the degree where we can make CPUs out of it, chances are we can also control biotech to the degree where we can make super diseases that'll wipe out all of humanity.
Yeah.
Or even worse.
Trade-offs.
You just go and make something that has a better ATP than most life. You know, better metabolism, and it'll just take over. And we'll all be covered with things that are now purple or something.
Like
So-
the biological grey goo, the nano.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's all. Like people talk about, the gray goo nano machines thing. Well, we're surrounded by gray goo. It's called bacteria.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the good news is that the Terminator scenario is a realistic, but the bad news is that the biological Terminator scenario is realistic.
Yeah. So, but come on, don't break my dreams here of 3D printing spaceships with mining farms in space around a Dyson
All right.
sphere.
You want,
Come
your,
on.
you want your dreams broken? Let me tell you about the anthropic principle.
And don't talk about space with Peter, because he's like the official expert in space mining, space solar powered space pirates attacking Bitcoin.
We need that. It's fun.
So will we see a moving synthetic steak quicker than we'll see a T1000?
Well,
Well, it'd be more tasty at least.
Yeah.
So what about Bitcoin carnivorism in age of that possibilities?
like eating your own chips when you finish doing that. So you have biological
Your
ASICs,
cheese.
and you can eat them when you finish, when they're not profitable anymore. That's great.
Look, I feel I need to make a statement about Bitcoin carnivorism. Someone mind fetching me some cake?
I'm a model Bitcoin carnivore, meaning that I do love pizza and I eat pizza, but I approve the triggering political message of carnivorism. So I with them with my heart and my reason, but not with my belly. Not always, at least.
I mean, your belly looks like mine, so I'm sure neither of us follow a carnivorous diet that well.
Yeah, it was better a few weeks ago. It depends on when so this is my statement. If I stay in Texas for 3 months, I can be carnivore. If I stay in Italy, there's no way.
No way, yeah.
Well, and I mean, that's the second baby coming, so, right? We're waiting for that.
It's the TV, don't believe them. It's the TV distortion.
So, Piers, it was fun talking to you.
Thank you.
Anything new you're working on? Anything, upcoming things? Anything that you want to shill before you get going?
I mean, I chill open timestamps, but I'm not going to make any money off of it, so...
And it's
you
less
can
anyway,
pay me
so.
to consult on it. And then I've got Proof Marshal, but I've probably shilled that before, and it's still not fucking done.
Oh, because you're on, like, just stupid YouTube shows
I know,
all the time.
I know.
Come on.
What am I doing with my life?
Now you've got commitment.
Yeah.
And yourself, Giacomo?
I have to announce that we are appointing Gavin Anderson as chief scientist of the defunded. No. I had my share of announcements already.
Yeah.
So I'll be quiet for a while.
Oh, that's a shame.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. It was great having you on. Absolutely brilliant. And looking forward to seeing more of your, well, both of your work soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
You're free from the fishbowl.
Yeah.
Someone is coming in.
Here we go.
We don't know yet.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
That's how we
Bye,
roll.
guys.
Nice meeting you.
So yeah, new topics are being here spitted on by the second. We're not gonna timestamp new ideas, apparently, because open timestamps suck. But hi there.
Ooh, stuffy in here.
Oh yeah, we are in the fishbowl.
We're only on audio, right?
No, we are on video
video.
right there.
Okay, well, I'll keep this on then. May I have a little of this water?
Of course, absolutely. But please, we need a lightning transaction for every little drop that you pour out of there. So.
1 Satoshi per molecule. Alright.
What's up?
All right, I'm here.
You're here. Perfect.
Right, so Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're Michael Laufer?
Yes.
And, yeah, please. So what do you do? The audience.
Should I take this or are we sharing?
I can hold it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I'm chief spokesman for the Fourth Use Vinegar Collective. We build open source tools for people to build DIY technologies, medical technologies, and medicines. Yeah.
Interesting. What's the could that lead to that? Suddenly in my head, I was like thinking about garden shed tinkering and creating these sort of biological bots. Is it along those lines, or am I too sci-fi?
It's not too sci-fi. I mean, that's out on the edge. We started by building an open source chemical reactor so that people can do chemistry on their own, because many pharmaceuticals are small molecules, and so doing the chemistry is doable. But of course there's a stigma against science. Oh, it's hard, it's only for people with degrees, and oh, you shouldn't mess with that, it's dangerous, and you'll blow yourself up, you'll poison yourself, and of course that's nonsense. But you need something to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And when you bridge the gap, you have to deal with that stigma, and we dealt with that in a lot of technologies. In the 80s, everybody was afraid of computers, but now everybody has one in their pocket, and one on their lap, and one on their desk. And similarly, maybe half a dozen years ago, rapid prototyping was something that occurred only in niche, specialized industries, and now 3D printing is just a word that we throw around. And what bridged the gap in those cases? In both cases, it was that there was a little bit of automation to take care of the things that are tedious, repetitive, easy to screw up, and there was a good user interface. That was basically it. If you look at the difference between an old school Unix machine and a Mac, that's basically it. And if you look at the difference between a UV gel laser 3D printer and a MakerBot, that's basically it. And so we tried to do the same thing with the chemistry. And then we did something similar with the EpiPen, but that was just repurposing things that were lying around. Here's an injector, here's a needle, here's a syringe. This really shouldn't be that hard to do yourself. And more recently, we're starting to deal with biological things, because the most expensive medicines in the world are biologicals. And there are new therapies that come out of biotech that not that tricky to make if you get a little help and a little instruction. So we're working in that direction. We have the one that we're excited about in terms of biotech is that the most common infectious disease in humans is dental caries, cavities. That's actually an infectious disease because it's caused by a substrain of strep, Streptococcus mutans, which has evolved to be able to grab the surface of the human tooth. Most bacteria can't do that, but it can do that, and it excretes lactic acid. Lactic acid, of course, breaks down your tooth enamel. When your tooth enamel breaks down, it sets up shop for a whole bunch of other organisms to come and rot your tooth out. And of course, once you have a tooth infection, a million other things go wrong with your body. So wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have those anymore? Well, it's entirely possible, and the technology's on the shelf. Anything that's an infectious disease, you should be able to inoculate against. Problem is, you can only inoculate against a bacterium before you have it. Infants get this in their first year of life, so there have been some studies, there has been done, it was efficacious, but it's not out there. So what do you do with the rest of us who already have this in our mouth? Well, some clever guys, 20 years ago, mind you, grabbed some of this bacteria and they modified it genetically. They made two modifications. They made it excrete a antibiotic that kills regular strep, strep mutans specifically, but it's immune to it. So you put it in an ecosystem where it's there, and it will take the spot in the ecosystem of the original strep mutans and outcompete it. And then they did a second edit where they took the open reading frame from the gene that says produce lactic acid, and instead it produces alcohol dehydrogenase, which doesn't break down your teeth. And so if you have this bacteria, you can just brush your teeth with it for 3 minutes and never get another cavity for the rest of your life.
So that's something you can put in your toothpaste? Is it that level yet?
You just have to do it once.
Oh, right, and that's
just
it, inoculated
once.
forever. Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Now, why do we not have access to this? Why aren't we all doing this? Well, it was never approved by the FDA, and it's genetically modified, so it's the intellectual property of the Hillman lab. And you know, if Hillman's out there and he wants to give it to us, like, we'd love to have it. We're trying to build it from scratch, however, and we've given the raw materials to a bunch of biohacking groups.
Open source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, pirated. Like,
Much better.
Like, I mean, it's important to differentiate, right? If we had developed it, we'd be, you know, putting it around open source, but it was developed by somebody else and it's not available. So we're, you know, essentially creating it from scratch, and we're hoping that we can just give it away. And the wonderful thing about biological material is that it's very similar to software in that if I have some, I can make as many copies as I want. I just dip in a little loop, streak another plate, and streak as many as I want, and it just grows because it's bacteria. And then I can send it out to everybody I know, and they can do the same thing. They can send it to everybody they know. And hopefully nobody in the world will ever have another cavity, because we shouldn't have to deal with illness ever.
Yeah.
Let's cure them all.
Yes.
That's a great point that you bring up, that bacteria are in that sense similar to software, that they are non-scarce goods, right? A scarce good is something that only one entity can have ownership over. And for example, if you have that bottle or the cup, I want to have some, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now you no longer have it, right?
Right.
And
however, if I make you a copy of some bacteria, I don't lose any by making a copy for you. It's the, right, what is the Thomas Jefferson quote? If I light your candle with mine, it does not make mine dimmer.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about that is we do not need private property, because there is no conflict over who can own and control this stuff. Because there is no private property, there is no free exchange. And because there is no free exchange, there are no prices. So therefore, these non-scarce goods, like software, like bacteria, should be free and gratis.
Can I stay here forever? I want it to be this obvious to everybody, and I'm really hopeful that it will become more obvious as these ideas proliferate, and that we're not just a bunch of crazies who are having like a party in Prague, and then people are like, oh yeah, you nutcases, and instead it's like, oh yeah, that really obvious thing that everybody didn't realize for, you know, centuries. Forever. Because, you know, people were making too much money.
And am I right in thinking that, or remembering, if that's the right word, that most of like the test cells that we have came from someone in like the 50s? That they just keep on.
Oh, for a specific thing, for, I believe, yeah, I'm trying to remember, but I believe that's for cancer research. Right, yeah. But there was one person, and they've been proliferating those cells for like, you know, 60, 70 years or something. Yeah. And there are plenty of cases like that. Like, you know, so many bacteria, right? They're just clones. So if you get a copy, you know you have the exact same thing. But you want to order it from a service, like, it's going to cost you a tremendous amount. And why is it going to cost you a tremendous amount? Because they know as soon as they give it to you, you can get as much as you want. Yeah. And so you're going to pay through the nose for it. So if you run a biohacking space and you would like a copy of JH 1140 Strep mutans Clark, which is edited, right?
Give it to your family for Christmas.
Now, this does not have the edit in it, but if you have the technology to edit a gene, and you need the raw materials of the precursor that has been edited to outcompete, write to us through the website, and we'll send it to you.
And what website is that?
fourthiesvinegar.org. We also have an Onion site if you're paranoid. I can't recite it, but it's
come on.
But it's on the other website. So come visit us. Say hi.
And you mentioned earlier about the kind of the fear of computers when they first came in, and the people's understanding around that. I'm quite a sciencey type guy, and it bugs me when I see food that says no chemicals, because it kind of says it's all made of chemicals. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's a great example of the stigma of science, right? There's this dangerous separation of information and understanding. And that's a cultural problem. We have this difficulty where people will take an idea and they will take sort of like a grab baggy version of it, right? Oh, chemicals are bad. Okay, have you defined what that is? Right? We have sort of this heuristic idea of like, oh, chemicals meaning things like solvents or pesticides or something toxic that doesn't occur in nature. And yet, the proper term chemical just means something with a molecular structure, right? Which is sort of right. Oh my God, it's everywhere. Right, and so it's and I think that the sort of the dangerous culture of anti-intellectualism plays into that a lot, where it's, oh, I want a rule of thumb. I'm going to read a headline but not, read the article, to say nothing of checking the sources of the article, to say nothing of, looking at the papers on which that was based or analyzing the study, which, anybody can do. They're just afraid to. And again, I think that so many things are like that. The difficulty, of course, comes in what I call the de-skilling cycle. So often we have some sort of technology like cryptocurrency, like PGP, like biotech, any of these things that sciencey types think of as like, oh yeah, well, anybody can do that. Yeah. Right, sure. Yeah, I do that on a Friday night after I've had a lot of absinthe. But to a regular person, they're like, oh, isn't that like weird and dangerous and stuff? And there's this gap. So normally, what happens is that the industrious sciencey types say, I'm going to build a stopgap. I'm going to create a technology that's going to allow people to have access to this without having to be all sciencey about it. And we feel really great about ourselves, and we proliferate that technology, and then as we do, the next thing that happens is that they become dependent on our technology, and we're back where we started. And this is very difficult. I remember, I just told this story in my talk. I remember I was part of a hackerspace back in the US, and I came in, and one of the guys who was a regular fixture was on the phone. He was really mad, and I said, "What's the deal?" He says, "Dude, I've been on hold with tech support at MakerBot for 2.5 hours." And I thought, we've lost the war. Because the whole point was that we're no longer subject to manufacturing infrastructure. This was going to make us all independent. And now the dependency has just shifted from one institution to another. Like, is it smaller? Is it less, parasitic? Maybe. But is that really progress or not? And so I think we all need to take a deep breath and think very carefully about how, when we set up technologies, that we can try to avoid that trap. Oftentimes people say, what's your end goal for the Four Thieves Vinegar Collective? And I say, to no longer exist. Which always takes people by surprise, because they're like, well, don't you want to build an empire? No, we're an anarchist collective and we'd like to not exist anymore. The idea being that if we develop technology to a beta stage and then we release it into the open source world, then it can be taken up by the open source community and people will build better versions of it. People will utilize it in ways we hadn't thought of before. People will take it and they will utilize it for things we hadn't considered. They will have, they'll develop new technology on top of it, and then DIY automated chemistry will just be another word. Hopefully there'll be a better word for it by then, right? And it'll be like, oh, I need some blank. Well, oh, cool. Let's download a recipe for it and we'll just cook it up at home. Because it shouldn't be that you say, oh yeah, well, let's hope that Four Thieves comes out with a recipe for that. That shouldn't be it. It should be like, well, let's figure a way to crank that out. Let's write a recipe for that. And so breaking the de-skilling cycle is really, really critical in my mind.
So it's kind of like how Satoshi threw the ball up in the air, and now the community keeps it up in the air forever.
Right. I think it's a great example. You know, how many zillions of cryptocurrencies are out there, and that came out of one paper that one guy threw out there. And I think that's boom. Yeah. You know, and props wherever you are.
She is.
And you know, and I'd like to see more things like that happen, where people develop robust protocols and release them and say, I think it's a good idea, you can run with it. I'm not pushing it though, which I think is really, really important. Oftentimes mainstream journalists will say, hey, can you introduce us to somebody who's using your technology? And I was like, And they're like, well, you won't? I was like, well, I don't know them. And they're like, how can you not be connected with your end users? And I said, they're not my end users, they're people. And those people make a decision as to whether they want to use our technology or not. Maybe they think it's a bad idea. It's about personal choice. That's the whole thing. We put the technology out there. We're not saying don't go to the doctor. We're not saying don't go to the hospital. We're saying, look, you should have options. And if the medical infrastructure fails you, you should have choices besides going, well, I guess I'll wait to die.
So do you see the FDA seeing what you're doing as a threat in any way, that people could, you know, that they could take it out of context, or at least the public, and then, you know, kind of get into this?
I think they take it in context, and they think I'm, you know, turning dangerous. I mean, seriously, they came out when the EpiPencil, which was our sort of most famous project to date, which was just a side project. We weren't going to do it, and people just kept bugging us through the website. Hey, why haven't you done something? And we're like, well, it's kind of not what we do. They're like, well, you should. And finally we said, okay, well, let's do that. The FDA came out and said, you know, don't make your own EpiPen. They didn't name us specifically, but we know you meant us. So that said, yeah, and I don't think they took it out of context. I think they didn't have any illusions. Most people that I've consulted with legally have said, you should put up for informational purposes only. And I was like, I'm not doing that. It's not for informational purposes. I mean, it is, right? Information is good, but it's not only for that. It's, you have 10 minutes to live if you get an injection of epinephrine or not. You should be able to do that yourself and not be held up in the woods for, you know, $600 for a pair, especially given that it's $1 for the medication, $1 for the needle in the syringe, and $30 for the reloadable auto-injector. Like, come on. This is ridiculous. And I'm not going to say, don't try this at home. Try it at home. I tried it at home. It's, you know, it's like, it's giving yourself an injection. In terms of safety, it's about as safe as it gets. So, I think we haven't been hit directly because industry and government don't see us as enough of a threat yet. I think once we are a little more successful, or hopefully, once we become a little more successful, I'm not hoping that they come after me. I'm hoping we become more successful, just to clarify my language. That it's only a matter of time before something comes down, which is why most of the members of the collective operate, you know, under a shroud of anonymity, and, you know, I'm the public face because that's my job.
Will we ever solve death? Will we live forever?
I don't know. I mean, and this is an important thing to note. There's a lot of technical aspects of the project. There's hardware coding and software coding, and there's chemistry, and there's medicine, and there's biotech, and I'm not an expert in any of these things. Now I know enough that I'm able to have the conversations with the experts within the field, or within the collective, and so I can call or message one of the doctors and say, hey, what do you think about this technology, or is there anything on the shelf for this ailment that seems to be, you know, or anything where there's good research but has not made it to the shelf yet, and I can have an intelligent conversation with them and then try and package that and work with the other members to develop something. But I'm not an expert in any of these things. My background's in mathematics and high energy physics, none of which are applicable, except that, you know, scientific method, maybe. Right. So in terms of anti-aging stuff, I mean, I had a nice chat with Aubrey de Grey at one point. He's a really sweet guy. It seems not impossible, but my position, and I wrote a piece for Wired Italy where I said, we can't wait for the promise of the future. And that I think is important, because the futurists often sell us on this idea of like, hey, checks in the mail, right around the corner. Just you wait. Mitochondrial disease, thing of the past. Everything's gonna be cool. We're all gonna live forever, and we're gonna be stronger and faster and smarter and cool. Maybe that'll happen at one point, but there shouldn't be just this hope of like, okay, well, maybe things will be leverageable enough, so I'll live long enough that the researchers will get to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and like, it's entirely plausible. I think his argument is good, assuming all of those pieces fall into place, which I think are a lot of ifs. And notably, the futurists in the 50s were predicting the same thing, and things haven't shifted a whole lot in the interim. So for me, not that I think it's an unworthy pursuit, I think it's something that we should look at. We all enjoy life, or at least I do, and okay. I hope everybody enjoys. I think maybe that's a problem we should look into more. Everybody enjoying life a little more, and then we can be like, well, then for those who enjoy life, let's have more of it. But yes, first maybe let's have more life in our years than years in our life. That said, I think that at the moment, the thing that's most critical to look at is how do we take the things that are on the shelf and make sure that people can actually get them? Because it says something very sad about the state of humanity when we take so much time and energy to develop these medical technologies and then we refuse to deliver them. I mean, there's so many things from which people suffer needlessly just because of intellectual property law, and I'd like to see that become extinct.
Yeah.
Like later today, like not after lunch or not tomorrow, but like now.
Yeah. Like Martin Shkreli, and how he pumped the prices 600% or something like that.
It went from $13.50 a pill to $750 a pill for a 50 milligram pill. Yeah, so, and that was something that we manufactured on stage for, so we made a quadruple dose, which is 200 milligrams, so that would equate to a $3,000 pill for less than 25 cents. And I was throwing handfuls of them to the crowd, which was fun. And then we called his cell phone when he wasn't in jail.
Nice.
And now we've written to him in jail. He hasn't written back yet.
But when you think about that, so the legal implications of, it's like you're letting someone suffer or die for the sake of profit, essentially, and how come that isn't morally apprehensible?
It's worse than that. It's worse than that. It's not just letting somebody die for profit. It's letting somebody die because you won't share an idea.
Yeah.
It's like you'd never, if somebody were dying in front of you and you had an idea on how to save them, you'd never say, "Hey, I know how you could live, but not going to tell you because that's my idea." Like, yeah, like nobody would ever do that. Nobody would ever do that, and yet all of us do that every day because we're complicit in allowing that system of intellectual property to persist while people drop dead from curable diseases endlessly because intellectual property law allows for control of these things. I mean, when you take a step back and see what's occurring, it's so patently bizarre. No pun, but it's so weird. It's so strange, and yet it's one of these things that's just accepted because it's been that way for a long time, and it just slowly evolved this way. And not unlike currency or statehood. So it's like so strange to think about these sorts of things. Like, well, what is a country? Well, a country is a place where a certain group has a monopoly on coercive force, and you're like, what?
Sounds great. When you describe it like that.
Yeah, or you think of, currency, and it's like somebody describes it again in abstract terms, and you're like, who came up with that?
Yeah.
Like, and yet these institutions are just ingrained, and because there's a sort of inertia of social structure, we just kind of be like, well, here we are. And some of us are being like, pardon me, over here, I have some thoughts. Maybe it couldn't be terrible if we just did things a little differently.
So do you think that on a large scale, right, we see open source software is winning? We see open source currency is winning. Do you think that we will see open source medicine winning?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. And we damn well better, because if we don't, things will become worse. And they're becoming worse, and we're seeing that happen. And again, when you talk about open source software, when you talk about open source currency, the thing that allowed the shift was a social change. It was the perception. Bitcoin was under the radar forever, and it was just a couple of us crazies who were pushing weird little hashes around, and oh, you guys with your little bit whatevers, oh, ha ha ha, and and then everybody lost their minds when they're like, what, it's worth $18,000 now? And some of us are being like, yeah. and people are like, well, are you going to cash that in for money? And some of us are like, no. Try this again. That is my money, right? And they're like, wait, but don't you want to cash that in? It's like, no.
The buck stops there.
It's not a commodity. We're not trading for it. That is currency. And then finally, when people are starting to get it, they're like, oh, you mean it doesn't have all of these horrible trappings that I've been dealing with my whole life? And the same thing with software, right? Where people are like, so what's the deal? You just make software and you give it away? That's real cute. Aren't you a humanitarian? It's like, no, we're trying to build better things, and this is how it works. It's like, yeah, but how are you ever going to make any money? And it's kind of I'm gonna have to have this discussion again. And the same, right? You're still in that same cycle. We're still in the infancy of that when talking about saying people are like, Jesus, did you just take a Tylenol? You should maybe talk to a doctor before you do that. And it's like, maybe you should talk to a doctor about why you're so scared to do anything for yourself. Maybe a different kind of doctor, right? And it's like, it's a cultural shift. We need to get to a point where the first urge that somebody has when they're ill is to say, well, I should learn about this. Not, oh, I'm going to go and ask an expert to tell me what to do, and I will take their advice on faith. Yeah. And instead, what we should be doing is saying, well, maybe I should be invested in my own health, rather than saying, oh, I'm going to wait until things are so bad that I can't function in my daily life, and then go to a so-called expert and be like, bail me out. And it's the same thing. It's like, cool, maybe you could learn how your computer works instead of being like, something's amiss. I'll go to the Genius Bar and push it across the desk and be like, make it work. I think my sound card's broken, and they hit the unmute button, and they're like, here, right?
100 plays, $100 please.
Right, yeah. That same sort of thing, right. And you're intentionally you're giving yourself over to be a hostage, and health is so critical. Yeah. You can do without a computer. You can do without a 3D printer. If you don't have your health, there's not much else that you can really do. If you're laid up health-wise, you're sort of stuck.
But one of the I think the issues with that, about people taking that power back, is that the internet is great in terms of this spreading of it, disseminating of good information, but at the same time, bad information disseminates faster and more.
It's a huge issue.
Yeah,
it's a huge issue. Learning to filter information is extraordinarily critical. the one place where this is a little bit safer is looking at Sci-Hub, where you can get just about any scientific paper without having to go through Cellier or any of those other processes. You can actually just go and get the original studies on which whatever clickbaity garbage you were reading was originally based on. And if you develop the skill, it is a skill, but it's not hard to acquire, of reading a scientific paper, then you can look at original research and compare original research and ask yourself, was this good? Is this something that should be done? Does this make sense? Is this something that I should look at in terms of trying to manage my own health? Or is this something that was highly experimental and it worked only in some very, very edge cases and not a lot of people tried it?
Study.
Yeah, and getting access to primary source scientific information is critical. And it's one of the things I think that is allowing a number of people who are now actively taking charge of their health to be able to do so. And to the woman who runs Sci-Hub in the former USSR, you are a wonderful human being, and we need more people like you in the world. And thank you for everything you do. We at the Four Thieves Vinegar Collective use your service every day, and we appreciate you in perpetuity. And everybody out there who hasn't seen Sci-Hub, go there. You can read any scientific paper that's behind a paywall for free. And for anybody who has Bitcoin, please send it to Sci-Hub.
Donate. Yeah.
That's the only donation mechanism that she has. Send her all your Bitcoins.
It's also the best donation mechanism. Come on, guys.
Yeah, and it's the most deserving place I know of. I mean, I'm sure there are others, but like, if somebody said, "Hey, you've won this trivia contest, and we're gonna send 80 Bitcoins to the charity of your choice," I'd be like, Sci-Hub, send them all there, no questions asked. So.
Awesome. Just one thing I was actually thinking, going back to the whole chemicals in food. I remember a post circulated around Facebook, and someone had put an apple, and I think it referenced a site that had an apple in every chemical. And
God, how long was that list?
It was huge. But you know what the hilarious thing was? Even though the meme kind of still said this, these are the chemicals that make up an apple, there were people who were furious saying, "We need to take these chemicals out of the apple."
Oh yeah. Oh sure. Right. Yeah, that's gonna work. Yeah, no, and it's and again, there's that danger, and it's easy for us to sort of have a laugh at those poor people's expense because they misunderstand it, but in reality, I think we all need to take responsibility for the fact that those people have been misled, and nobody's stepped in to be like, hey, you know what? Science isn't a club. Science is a human right, and you can do it too. There's no barrier. There's no barrier. Oh, scientists go to school. Well, some of them do. Yeah. I mean, some of them don't need to. I recently met this really, really brilliant kid. He's 19 years old, and at age 16, he developed an open source tool that allows, yes, and Nick, I'm thinking of you, man, that allows people who are paralyzed to move again using their brainwaves, right? Off-the-shelf parts, okay? So he uses a TENS unit that stimulates muscle, and he's mapped the extremities so that he has contact points for being able to do specific things. And then he has a machine learning system built into a Raspberry Pi off of a off-the-shelf unit that is an EEG. And what it does is it's just it's a machine learning unit, and you just train it for 10 minutes, and he has people who haven't moved in 30 years suddenly moving their arm.
That's incredible.
Like, and and he finished high school, but like he didn't need to. And not that school can't be useful. It can be if you utilize it correctly and if it's for you. It might not be. He asked me about higher education because I teach at a university, but he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, you can do it, but think about why. Think about what you're going to get from it. You're already a scientist. You don't need letters after your name. And certainly there are the people who are like, well, where did you go to school? And it's like, do you want to know what I have on the wall or what I can do? And I'm weird because like I have stuff on the wall and people take me seriously for it, which they shouldn't. Because it doesn't relate to most of the things that I do in life. I am a mathematician and I do teach, math. I'm chair of a math department. So that's relevant. But when people are like, oh, Dr. Laufer, yeah, you do medical stuff. And I'm like, don't take me seriously because there's doctor before my name. Not that kind of doctor. And so, and I think that's a critical thing.
So we should replace certificates on the wall with electronic counters of how many people you've helped. As in you, as in the royal you and the science community.
Blockchain that.
Blockchain that. I think you need to know ICO.
I think it's simpler than that, right? I mean, we can over-engineer it from here to forever, but in a simpler sense, it's like, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're talking about? Cool. That's an easy thing to check. Yeah. Right? Fine. There are plenty of people who went to top schools and have PhD, MD, whatever, and they're yahoos. And like, yeah, you really should be accountable not by the institutions which validate you, but rather by those things which you manage to assist with. And that's what we should all aspire to is making the world better, even in the most selfish case, right? For, and people are like, whoa, why should I help the world? I just want, my life to be better. It's like, cool, this world, this is the one you live in. Wouldn't you like it to be better just from the most selfish perspective possible? Yeah. Wouldn't it be nicer if you lived in a world where things sucked less? I mean, sure, yeah, you could be predatory and try and make things better for yourself, but like ultimately that's not the best thing for yourself, even in the short term. I mean,
that is life. Life is in a sense suffering, right? We live in a perpetual state of uneasiness. And our task is with human ingenuity to remove this uneasiness, to make life just a little bit better with every step.
And the thing that you see, or that I see, in just about every institution which has ever been founded was there was a push to try to do that. And eventually it was bastardized, right? And religious movements are a great example, right? You look at the roots of any religious movement, and the whole idea was like, hey, maybe we could be a little nicer to each other for a change. And then eventually it was like, cool, we're building power hierarchy again. And, and we're laying down rules again. And it's like, yeah, no, think for yourself, stay hungry, stay foolish, transform the future. Be good to each other, because why not? And it'd be nice to see more of that. It would really be nice to see more of that.
It would. And we're glad that we have you fighting for our side and fighting towards liberty.
Yeah, and everybody else who's doing it, because, I'm not the first, I won't be the last, and there are so many more. And there are so many more fronts on which it has to occur. And it was so inspiring to see so many people looking for ways to transform things. Whether they work or not, just the fact that there's an attempt, that the idea is out there, eventually somebody's going to find a way to subvert existing legal systems and to subvert statehood and develop new models for travel and borders. All of these things are incredible problems which need to be addressed. Health was the one that hit me the hardest, just emotionally, and I needed to do something about it. But there are any number of things which need to be addressed, and I'm so glad to see so many people trying so hard with so many things. And I think the most important thing, which is often overlooked, is that guarantee of success should not be a requisite for trying. So often I see people saying, that'll never work. Okay, that's fine. it doesn't mean that that's a lack of progress that they're trying it. That doesn't mean that that's failure. That's progress. They tried something and they didn't work, and now we have more data. We understand the system better. We have a greater appreciation for the structure on a subtler level of the ecosystem. We need to do that. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. That's how we evolve systems. And so when somebody says, oh yeah, well that didn't work, in this derisive way, I say, hang on. Who else tried that? Oh, they were the first to try that? It didn't work? Cool. We learned a lot. We know something that doesn't work and we're trying to accomplish that. Thank you. And I think that there needs to be a much greater appreciation for people who attempt things and are not hindered by the idea that it didn't cause the grand revolution that they were dreaming of when they started. Like it never does. No revolution. You know, Cuba, South Africa, China, it doesn't matter. Any of these things that you look at, yeah, they went south. God, how important was that for us to learn from? And how much better can the next iteration be? And, you know, cryptocurrency, health, statelessness, all of these things. How can we do better?
Awesome. Yeah, I think we didn't kind of get to the human race didn't get to this this state by or get where we are without altruism, and we needed to succeed and move forward, and you know we need to unite more rather than you know dividing more.
Yeah, there are countless examples of that, and I think people often, you know, get hung up with glory. It's easy to. Everybody remembers Gandhi. Nobody remembers Bhagat Singh. And yet, you sort of have to ask, right? And people will say, well, what he did failed. Well, did it? Or is what you call failure actually progress because there was a change and then things had to, the structure adjusted. You know, people look at in the U.S., the Weather Underground, say, well, they failed. Well, did they? Think of all the things, and you know, people would think, oh, they were a terrorist organization. They did terrible. They threw bombs. Yeah, they did. You know, and that caused a lot of people to think differently. And the pressure about the Vietnam War changed when they said bring the war home, and they were creating a front for the Viet Cong inside the U.S. fought by Americans. And everybody's like, they were just a bunch of crazies. Well, okay, but what they did was non-zero, and that did change the way people think about things. And suddenly there was a structural change. And yeah, okay, so those people aren't famous. Maybe I'm the only one who knows about, you know, who really cares about Bernardine Dorn or, you know, Bill Ayers and Mark Rudd as heroes, and now they're just people who are working in local politics where they live. But what they did change things. Just because it's not visible and they're not famous and they don't have, you know, schools named after them doesn't mean what they did was insignificant. And I think that there are, you know, I think all my heroes are unsung, and I think there are many here who will remain unsung, and I think that that's okay. And they need, you know, people need to make peace with the fact that they may be a hero that nobody will ever know about, and that doesn't mean that their work is not critical. And to all of the people out there who will never be known, thank you.
Yeah.
I know you're out there.
Much, yeah,
yeah.
Definitely.
And you know, the information that we say should be open source. It should be shared freely. This can only be given away, right? This is knowledge. Information is knowledge. You as an individual have to sit down and try to understand this information. And this is an internal process, right? With your thoughts, heart, and gut. This is something that only you can do by yourself. But even then,
Yeah.
you have only understood it. Action on that understood knowledge is what brings you wisdom and what makes change manifest in the world. And any action that is in accordance with your thoughts, emotions, and your heart, that is fundamentally a change that will manifest, and it will manifest greatly. Yes, it might be forgotten by those who are currently in present, but the change is still there, and it has been built upon and built upon and built upon. So in that sense, even though these heroes might be forgotten, we still live in a world that has been affected by them, that has been changed by them, and that is what matters.
and permanently. And of course, also when you talk about information, there's a subtle point which people will, suggest is philosophical hair splitting, but there's this important difference between information and knowledge. Information can be commodified, but knowledge cannot, because it perpetuates, right? That is the source. If you have the understanding, then you can create. You've essentially seized the means of production of knowledge, right? And so you've gone a level deeper. Well, I can sit, and if you're better at chess than I am, you can show me a trick. But if you don't explain why it works, then it's just a trick, and I need to come back to you and say, hey, can you show me another trick? I've run into too many people who know that trick and they know a better trick. But if you instead say, here's the structure of the game, maybe you can just play with it. Then you say, here's a tool, go use it. All of a sudden, then this bubbling spring of information, and I can create as much as I want. And I think that leveraging, that exponential growth that comes from empowering people, not by telling them what to think, but telling them how to think. Tell someone a truth and they will think for a day, but teach someone to reason and they will think for a lifetime. Hopefully. if you teach well enough.
And that is the difference between trivia, just random facts, and the trivium, the true way of learning. So absolutely.
Yeah. And again, I think that it's a cultural shift that we're looking for. And if we can get to a point where there's, rather than a culture of anti-intellectualism, there's perhaps a romanticization of intellectualism. If it becomes sexy to be smart and and thoughtful and doing right, yes, and all of you guys are gonna get laid like all the time, right?
Oh, really?
Well, we can hope. But if that happens, then there will be, again, that exponential leveraging that you'll see where things will start and people will think more, and then people will try to be able to do more with what they do know, and then they'll be able to build more, and then they'll be able to learn more, and then they'll be able to teach more, and then and we all do better, and there's the upward spiral. Yeah, just play that 9 Inch Nails album backwards, and you get the upward spiral. Maybe. Sorry, didn't you know the downward spiral? 9 Inch Nails bomb. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know.
Yeah, but he's behind camera.
Sorry, some of you out there know the 9 Inch Nails album, the downward spiral. Anyway, yes, upward spiral.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Is there final message then for everyone?
Take control of your own health. Do not fall victim to outsourcing responsibility. It is so tempting to say that something is the realm of experts, and so it's not your business. Everything you do is your business. And the second that you allow an expert to take that away from you, you have surrendered your power. And you can take it back just as easily by saying, no, I'm going to think about this myself first. It's not to say there's no utility in consulting experts, but be invested in your own health and do not say, I'm just going to wait. Monitor your own health. Be invested in your own health, especially if you're healthy. Check, get blood work done, read the results, decide what you think. Do you think you're healthy? Who cares what anybody else thinks? Decide what you think. And then, adjust as you see fit, and and apply it to every other aspect of your life too. I think about health because that's the realm in which I work, but it applies to everything. Be invested in your own life. Be invested in your own life. What are you doing besides living your life this week? What's more important?
Don't let yourself be represented. Present yourself. Be a sovereign individual, someone who is undivided in his actions.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure's
It really
been mine.
was.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks ever so much.
And keep up the amazing work.
Thank you so much.
And keep up the good fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Fight hard.
I just that's the thing about conferences like these. They're too good. Like it's gonna be downhill for from tomorrow when it's in.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Like go back to normality. I'm just gonna have to go and sort of get my fix and sign up to whatever conference I can. You know, even if it's not crypto, I'm just gonna turn up and just try and turn it into a crypto conference or something.
Yeah. He's back. We got Mr. Sir Matt Bitcoin.
All right, and let's see.
I'm gonna tag out briefly to get a drink.
So I'm
Cheers,
Tom.
guys.
Stefan. We're joined by Stefan, who Jimmy Song just told me a minute ago created the very first Lightning hardware wallet. Welcome, Stefan. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me here.
And how's the conference going for you so far?
Well, great. A lot of maybe I can hold it.
Sure.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure to be on the conference, and the main effect is obviously networking, like meeting lots of interesting people and listening to a few interesting talks. Because the topics are pretty broad, and maybe some are not very relevant for me, but still. Really awesome, and I'm happy that on this conference, I actually had a talk. So my first talk on the Bitcoin conference.
That's awesome.
That's very nice. Over there we have, Lang, if you could pick that up and show that to the camera, the Cold Card hardware wallet, which is one open source Bitcoin wallet, which currently only works for on-chain. But it's a beautiful hardware wallet, you should really check it out. But where is the main difference, or what are the problems, and why can we not use a standard Bitcoin hardware wallet for Lightning? What problems do we solve here?
With hardware wallets for Bitcoin, you normally store them as far away from the computer as you can, and normally kind of closed in the deposit box and with a multi-signature and so on, and touch your private keys as little as possible. And in Lightning, the architecture is completely different. So if you have to protect your secret for the Lightning network and to kind of keep running the Lightning node, you actually need always to talk to your private keys to the hardware wallet, and always have some feedback from there, and to update the channels, to pay, to receive, to do anything basically. So here the approach is slightly different. In the Bitcoin hardware wallets, we normally just put the keys in there and then they're safe. Here we constantly need to be online and watch the blockchain, see if the channels were closed or not, monitor if other parties are misbehaving and trying to cheat with us, and things like that. So it is much more interactive technology.
So I've talked recently to Nick Bhatia about his idea of the Lightning Network reference rate, and the idea that the amount of money that you get when you lend people your Lightning and they use it and they send the money around, that could be seen as an interest rate, and that you could kind of receive interest for your Lightning. If I put my money in a Lightning hardware wallet, would it still be used on the network, and would I receive this interest or these small amounts of payments when my money's used?
So that's actually the idea. So right now in Lightning we have like 150 Bitcoins, and we have a lot more in cold storages, even though let's say some of them are lost, and people probably don't want to put all of them in there. Sure. But still, let's say I own a few Bitcoins, I probably want to take 10% of them and actually put them onto the network. But to put them on the remote server, let's say I run a Lightning mainnet node on DigitalOcean or somewhere, and like really putting thousands of euros in there and announcing to everyone that this is my IP address and I'm trying to earn some money, it's crazy. So instead, ideally, what I would do, I would just run it on the server or on my computer, where all the heavy stuff is happening, like gossiping, communication with other nodes and so on. But if I need to route the payment and collect some fees, this request should actually go to the hardware wallet. It will check that, we will get some money, so we only increase in our funds, and then we sign this pair of transactions and we complete the multi-hop. So for that, we obviously need to have a dedicated device that ideally should be much simpler than the Linux computer that we normally use for Lightning.
So essentially you're saying that the 100 or so Bitcoins that are currently on the Lightning Network are all in hot wallets, and they're all kind of advertising that you could come here and steal them, or I have a computer somewhere that's turned on in my house that is running Lightning and that is hosting all these Bitcoins that then could be attacked and stolen.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm really scared looking at that. I mean that, yeah, Lightning is still in the beta, and you can lose the funds not only by someone coming in and stealing secrets from your server, also because of the implementation bugs and because they're still in beta. But yeah, 150 Bitcoins, how much is that? And you can just go browse what nodes are the most connected, how many funds they have, you have their IP address, and you can try to attack them. And if there will be a zero-day vulnerability or something on the Linux system by, I don't know, or even if it is hosted on the VPS, then you can probably use this meltdown for Shadow and other vulnerabilities that allow you to get secrets from the other virtual private server.
They say that the Lightning Network is reckless, but they never thought it was that bad, right? Yeah, 150 Bitcoins at risk. And that's why we definitely need solutions like this Lightning hardware wallet. What is it made out of? Is it like a Raspberry Pi, a USB stick? And is it for sale, or is it more of just like an initial test product?
So right now we are still working on the prototype, and well, we are in the very beginning. I hope that by the end of the year we will actually have the prototype.
Great.
So it is not a Raspberry Pi, because with Raspberry Pi you already have Raspberry Blitz, and it is actually a full Linux system on top of which you have a Lightning node running. So it is a microcontroller based, so it is Cortex M4 currently. We are still thinking about what hardware we actually want to use in that, but the idea is that for microcontrollers it is just a tiny computer that runs a single C program, nothing else. And there is only one communication channel over the USB to the actual host. So the attack surface of the microcontroller is much smaller, and some of them are designed to be very secure even against the hardware attacks. So we are using something like that, and currently we want to make it work with any mbed developer board. So ideally, when we release the codes, anyone can buy a board from stock for $20 or so, not from us, just a general one, upload the firmware, and actually have a hardware wallet for Lightning and Bitcoin. And after that we will already start working on the actual product that we want to make nicely caged, with a large screen, a nice user interface and stuff like that, and maybe earn some money with that.
So can the same hardware device be used for both Lightning and Bitcoin on-chain?
Yeah, sure. So it's not very different, and basically all the Bitcoin functionality is necessary for the Lightning hardware wallet to work. So if you want, you can do the same without any Lightning functionality. You can just do your own hardware wallet that will be reasonably secure on the level of current hardware wallets, and you can also add extra functionality. If you're a developer, you can just include some extra features, like let's say you want to use fancy scripts like time lock, or you want to implement CoinJoin. Yeah, you're welcome to do so. And the idea is to make this hardware available for everyone.
And when you said you're going to release the code, are you going to open source the code?
Yes, yeah.
And that's going to be so other people can review it and we can trust that we're putting our money in a safe place, right?
Yes, and ideally we want to work together with Trezor Ledger and other guys to develop the protocol for communication with the Lightning nodes, with the Lightning implementations, and I hope that also LND and C Lightning and the Clear team will join and help us to develop this common kind of interface. So then I hope that soon we will see support of the Lightning on all hardware wallets on Ledger and Trezor also.
So can this be backported to a already existing hardware wallet?
It's a bit hard because if you want a full security for the hardware wallet for the Lightning, you actually need to monitor to parse the blocks a bit. So one thing that is missing in the current hardware wallet is a real-time clock. Because either you can rely on the third parties, or you need to get the block headers and see if no one closed the channel. Because the bad thing that can happen is when someone closes the channel and then you don't know about that. Your hardware wallet doesn't know about that, and they try to update the channel state by paying to remote node. So this is a little bit hard, but in general it is a minor issue. So even now on the existing hardware we can implement like 90% of the Lightning hardware functionality, and hopefully then we will have new hardware devices that can do everything.
Mm-hmm. And so, of course, a good feature with these hardware devices is that they can be offline, right? They do not have to be connected to the computer, to the full computer all the time. Mm-hmm. So are there some risks that, because of the Lightning hardware wallet, it has to be connected, that some virus or some Trojan can go through the cable and go on this device?
Well, I hope not. I mean that it is a large part of the attack surface, obviously, and you need to design this communication layer in such a way that you don't have overflows or anything. So there is a risk, and I think that you probably don't want to put all the Bitcoin. So it's not a perfectly secure thing, and there is no such thing as perfectly secure hardware wallet or perfect security in general. So there are always trade-offs. So if you want to earn some money with the Lightning on the fees on the routing, the payments, then you have to take some risk. But I think that right now we just taking too much risks just by storing the keys in the plain text on the server.
That might be a slight improvement already.
Especially given the big news with the potential Chinese hardware attack, where they put a chip inside these boards from Amazon and Apple and other companies, where they could just make the password, instead of checking the password database, it just checks to blank. So if you're saying there in plain text on the server and you get server access, all you have to do is copy and paste, and you get to steal the code. And remember, when the hackers steal your Bitcoin or they steal your Litecoin, they steal all your Bitcoin. They steal all your Litecoin. They don't even leave you a couple of Satoshis, to tip the cab driver or anything.
As far as I know, the first thing that any Trojan does when it gets to the server, it checks for any kind of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies wallet. And yeah, so in case of C Lightning, for instance, the only thing that you need to do is hexdump user folder .lightning / HSM secret, and then this is 32 bytes that control everything for you.
That sounds secure, right?
Very safe, very safe.
But still, everything is still in beta, so the Lightning is not fully developed, and there will be many improvements.
So when running a Lightning mobile wallet on your phone, like Eclair or the Bitcoin Lightning wallet, then you get the option of storing the state encrypted on a drive, like a Google Drive, or like OneDrive, or the other drives that are out there. So can this also be stored on the hardware wallet?
So the idea is that on the hardware wallet, if it is good enough, then it should store the channel states on itself, so it doesn't rely on any encrypted database somewhere. The problem that Eclair is trying to solve is that if you're using a Eclair wallet and you have Lightning some money in the Lightning there, then if you erase the app and then install the app on another phone, then you keep only your Bitcoin funds, because the state of the Lightning channels are, they just are gone, right? And by backing it up to the Google Drive, you can actually get it back on the new phone. But there are problems, like you can't really run two Eclair wallets with the same database on two different phones, because if you are paying on one of them and then on another one you will close the channel and it still didn't get the latest state of the channel, then you will be punished and you will lose the balance of this channel. But the nice thing about the wallets, Lightning wallets on the mobile, is that they don't have to be online all the time. You know, you just run it whenever you want to pay. But the problem is that then you can't accept Lightning payments, because basically you don't need to monitor the blockchain to see the for the previous channel states broadcasted, because you only sending money. So all other states will give you only more money, so you don't really care.
More money, that's not a problem. Less money, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
So, and with a hardware wallet like this, the cool thing is that you have a real world interaction, right? You have to push the button in order to sign the transaction. Doing that with Lightning Network and doing like several transactions per second, there's a lot of pushing the buttons. Do we need to have the physical verification of every transaction for Lightning?
So if you want to pay the invoice, so you initiate everything, or you want to open the channel, or you want to close the channel, then you probably want to have a confirmation, because this is what influences your funds. On the other hand, if you're just routing the transactions for others and you're only collecting fees, then why to bother? You can just, the hardware wallet logic should just check that you only gaining some money and then just sign everything that it needs to sign. So you don't need to push like buttons 100 times per second.
That's good, although I have been practicing at video games, so I'm prepared for that eventuality.
But are you willing to kind of get 1 Satoshi per click? I mean, it's not enough. And as soon as Lightning fees will go even down, because I think that in Lisbon there was a conversation, like we need to push the fees on the Lightning even below 1 Satoshi. So like for milli Satoshi, do you want to click that? I mean, it's not very...
I did actually see a great tweet recently. It was from like the Museum of Capitalism or something like that, and it's a big machine full of pennies, and for every 4 cranks you get 2 pennies, and it's an emphasis of like what you actually make when you're making minimum wage per hour. So I wouldn't like to do it, but other people they just might, and it depends what country you're in and so on and so forth. Maybe those 2 pennies are worth a lot to you. But yes, it does sound like not a very fun afternoon clicking that button 1,000 times and so on.
Well, I would just innovate. I would take like an electric drill, I'd plug it into the wrench and push the button and let it spin a lot and lot and lot, and I would get all the pennies. That's what innovation does.
Well, thank you so much for being on, and thank you for your work with the Lightning hardware wallet. Just a general question or two about Lightning. How do you think that it's going as a network? Do you think that it's going to be ready soon, or is it going to be ready now, or what do you think?
I think that right now we at least get some wallets that are usable. I mean, user experience.
iOS would be nice, right? I'm almost to the point of buying an Android device just so I can get on the main net instead of the test net. I've got the Zap wallet. I'm in the test flight. I got testnet Lightning, and I look around. No one has testnet Lightning to work with me. Everyone's on the main net now. They're all bragging about it with their stickers. I can't seem to buy anything with my test coins. But I'm going to have to buy an Android, learn how to use it, which I prefer iOS anyway. Yeah, hopefully we can get all that going, right, the ecosystem. And also I had to run a DigitalOcean droplet. I had to make a little node or something. I ran some Linux commands. I skipped one. The chat was yelling at me, "No, you skipped one. It's a nightmare." Jack Mahlers himself was in. I keep calling him Zach because he should be Zap Mahlers. Jack was in the chat. He was like, "No, you missed a step." So I even have the developers helping with me, but I got through it. I created the node. I got the testnet wallet, but obviously I don't expect normal people to do that.
Yeah, so for normal people it is still pretty hard.
Yeah, they don't know the command line. They don't have a chance. It's like,
I would say that in half a year everything can change and everyone will be using it pretty easily, because Lightning is online still. From January, I suppose. January, I ran my first mainnet node for few weeks, I suppose. Yeah. Then I had some issues with the versioning and kind of updating and so on, so I just dropped that thing. But now, so in a little bit less than a year, many people already like running it. Yeah,
that's right.
And I think another half a year and we are good to go.
Another half a year, not bad at all. Is there anywhere that we can learn about this project or follow you on Twitter, something like that?
Currently I don't have any repositories with the code about that, but yeah, follow me on Twitter and I will post there everything that I have and what we are doing and where we are talking and current status of the project.
That's great, and we also know that they live stream your talk on the Paralelní Polis YouTube channel, so people can check that out. They can catch up with that later. They can even go at 2x speed like Max always does. So thank you so much for joining us.
I actually also watch myself by accelerated by factor of 2 or so, and all other speakers also.
It saves time. It happens more and more. Sometimes people come up to me and they're like, "Why are you talking so slow?" And I'm like, "This is how I talk. I'm used to listening to you on 2x speed. Could you go a little faster?" And I'm like, "This is the best I've got. You know, I got to think first, then I speak." So.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
It was a pleasure meeting you, and keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
It really is important.
Thanks.
Now, if we could just get Max from out there, I think he's coming.
Yes, Max. Did he walk by again?
There he
is. There's Max. So he's been waiting to be on here. I think he's tired like the rest of us. I'm sure he's excited to be in the fishbowl just until he gets in here and he realizes the heat. That's right. You can see your own breath. We're in a box, but we're joined by Max from Hodl, one of the organizers of the Baltic Honey Badger Conference in Riga. Here, Max, you can have your own microphone. I speak loud enough for the room.
Thank you. My own mic. It's really, I'm proud of it.
So maybe as a little recap, you of course co-organized the Baltic Honey Badger Conference. Now a couple of weeks have passed. Now you've gotten hopefully some sleep. What can you say in hindsight? How was the conference?
Hackers Congress?
No, the
Hodl conference, Baltic Honey Badger. Well, I think it went really good. A lot of people had a positive response. Yeah, we're shilling another conference on this conference.
That's the way it works, man. Cross that promotion up. Right?
Yeah, promotion. But I didn't want to specifically speak about our conference. I wanted just to praise guys from Paralelní Polis about Hackers Congress. Really impressive conference. Great. Bit different, more into anarchy and crypto anarchy in particular, but I'm impressed. Really nice, bit more cozy than Honey Badger, and would love to be here next year as well. So guys, just if you have an opportunity next year, come to Hackers Congress, and of course come to Baltic Honey Badger as well, so a little bit of shilling yet still.
Absolutely, and it's great for me as a visitor from America when these conferences are only a couple of weeks apart. I can find a place to stay in between, and then I can go to both conferences, really maximize my time in Europe. And I don't like airplanes, so if I'm going to go on a 10-hour airplane, I want to make it worth it and try to hit 2, maybe even 3 Bitcoin conferences. So it really worked out well this time.
Maybe next year we will be able to cooperate somehow with other conferences, so that people who come, there's a lot of people coming from US, coming from like Asia, Australia, Asia, New Zealand. So we do understand that it's actually quite inefficient to travel back and forth, so like 10-hour flight, crazy. And maybe for next year we will be able to do again conferences closer to each other, so that you and other participants can just travel around Europe and enjoy both of the conferences.
And so how is this, because so there are of course people coming here who are visitors, right? There are people who come here as speakers, there are people like us who are media. You come here as a conference organizer. So what is your specific view that might be different from others?
I actually came as a speaker. And
Also.
as a speaker, yeah. I spoke on two occasions. One was a panel that was specifically made for crypto meetups or crypto events organizers. It was really fun. I didn't prepare anything, but it went quite well, smoothly.
Nice.
And another one was about HODL, how we build it, and I spoke a little bit about history and of HODL, of course, and how we're developing, what the challenges was. In terms of attending the conference as an organizer, with my view, I think it's not ethical to point on differences. Because we had, like, during our conference, we had some of complaints of people who were organizing other events, and I don't believe it's a proper thing to do. Well, you can come to another organizer in private manner and just say, you know, everything is good, but you need to, like, fix this, fix that. Otherwise, I really believe that this conference is really good.
Yeah.
And again, it's a bit different from Honey Badger because we're, like, Bitcoin focused.
Right.
And they have, like, more diversified or more, like, broader audience of people who are doing different stuff, not specifically in crypto. But I do believe that these both are different conferences, but these both are high quality conferences and events to attend. So I can only say, the guys here did a really good job, really impressive, and huge respect for them for doing it.
I think you can quantify the quality of a conference by the numbers of ICOs being shilled, and that was surprisingly low here.
Yeah. So we didn't have any ICO. It was the initial thing, and I think the guys in here also didn't have any ICO. So
one of the things I liked about the Honey Badger conference is that it was just one track, and it was kind of all in one room. And certainly, maybe this is a larger conference; they need the multiple rooms. But for me, as a conference attendee, the one room really works for me. I feel like I'm there or I'm not there. Whereas this one, you have to choose between a great speaker, another great speaker, another great speaker, and I want to be in all three rooms at once. And maybe I just watch them on YouTube later. But it is nice to have the one room. And then as for this conference, one of the things I really liked, and I think a lot of people liked, although maybe it gets us less speakers, is that they start the conference at 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
That
really works with my schedule.
That's great. We do it quite early. You know, first day was 9 o'clock in the morning.
I don't think I quite made that one, but I was there the next day.
Yeah, but actually, you know, we were surprised because when we started the first day, the room was like 90% packed with people, so everyone came. And why we do that? Because we have so many interesting people speaking. We have so many interesting panels, so we just simply cannot fit in everyone. If we will start at 1 o'clock, then we will just we won't finish by midnight. So and everyone is like willing to party after 6 o'clock. So yeah.
And we're very fortunate here. This is a 3-day conference. It gives them a little bit more time to spread the speakers out. I think Baltic was a 2-day, right? So it was just a weekend.
We've had a 2-day, just a weekend, and we will stick to that. Actually, we are we are Bitcoin focused, and it gives us from one perspective, it's good. We don't need to find speakers from other different areas. On the other hand, it's a bit more complicated because each year we need to raise the quality of event and find speakers that wasn't attending the previous one. And during the first 2 editions of Honey Badger, we literally invited some of the biggest name in Bitcoin industry. So basically, it will be hard, but we already have preliminary lineup for the next event. It will be more epic than this year, even though. So yeah, hopefully next year will be more interesting.
That's awesome, and I really like this idea of the conference organizers working together to try to schedule these conference, maybe weekend. I know it's difficult, and everyone wants the right weekend, and they announced it last year and all these things, but I think it could really work out. I was just talking to a friend of mine on Facebook, and she's in Las Vegas, and she was saying, you know, she went to Hoshu Con, and Andreas was there, and Max Kaiser was there, and I've always wanted to meet Max Kaiser, and I kind of moved to Vegas recently, but I'm missing Hoshu Con, and I'm missing some of these other conferences, because they're all on at the same time, and maybe October is the month of conferences. I don't know how the schedules work out, but any kind of coordination there I think would be fantastic, and anything we can do to help set that up. And even if it doesn't work out, they say, well, we like you and you like me, but we're going to have them on the same day. At least we tried. And maybe next year we could have them a week apart. These are options. We can work together on this, and I just want everyone to succeed. And when they're all on at the same time, I can't go to the mall, others can't go to the mall.
We need to fork Matt Bitcoins.
Yeah, I know. Calvin and Hobbes, he has that clone machine, and he can just pop out clones of himself, and I always thought that sounded great.
Yeah, so maybe for next year we could coordinate somehow with other guys. This year we actually launched the ticket sales and announced the dates after the Hackers Congress was sold out, so we didn't compete with each other.
Yeah, that's the way to go. And I know, especially for HCPP, they're in their 5th year, and the tickets are really starting to sell out. And it's not a very big event space here. There's only a limited number of people they can get in with the fire marshal and the laws and such. You know, Hodl is kind of a very large space. It was pretty nice this year, but who knows, you know, next year, larger space, smaller space, all these kind of things. Eventually, your event does hit this kind of point like Burning Man, where more people want a ticket than can go to the event. Yeah, and it's a good thing, but it's a bad thing.
It was actually this year as well on Baltic Honey Badger that people will just disappointed because they couldn't get in because we were so filled in with that. And next year, most probably, we won't increase amount of people too much because we think we reached the threshold after which it will be less interesting, less cozy, a lot of people, and I think that 700, 800 is like maximum capacity for us.
So we talked to Jeff from Fulmo Lightning, and he's a co-organizer of the Lightning Hack Day, right? And this is not a conference, but a unconference. So it gives the opportunity of everyone who wants to get a speaking slot and to present what he or she is working on. So what are your thoughts on these unconferences?
I actually didn't have my own research on that. I think it's great. The problem with us is that people get paid. People pay us money or pay for a ticket, and they want to receive certain quality, and they want to see people who are like quite like successful within the industry. So that's a restriction for us. We cannot just give a speaker slot to anyone who wants to speak. We usually each year we refuse to some. We have a line of people who are waiting. Because like this year, unfortunately, we had some issues with not because their fault, it was just force majeure, with some of the speakers that couldn't attend, and we just replaced them with people waiting in line. But again, we're trying to onboard like big names in the industry because people are willing to see big names, people are willing to travel. People are not willing to fly from Australia to see a guy who is, even if he is like smart and he's like skilled, but nobody knows him, and that's the unfortunate thing, and I do understand that. Maybe for next year we will have like 1-2 speaker slot for people who are less familiar within the industry, but they have interesting topics and interesting stuff to say.
And I definitely think that's true. If people are going to travel a great distance, they want to see kind of some big names or some people who are involved in some big projects. And the unconference format sounds fun, and especially if you're local and you could drive there. It's awesome. But you know, if you're going to travel the world, you got to deliver, right?
It's the same as with crypto meetups. You know, you onboard local, to some extent, celebrities, like local people who are familiar within local community. Usually these meetups are free or they cost like very cheap, and that's fine, that's okay. you know, because you're aimed on local, like promoting local community, helping people to learn something new. We are like global event. We had this year, we had like only, from total amount of attendees, there was like, I don't know, less than 5% of people who were local actually. 96-97% of people were traveling from abroad to Latvia.
Yes.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
when we were getting back there one night, I'd left my badge at the hotel or whatever, and I talked to the security guard, and he said, "Oh, you speak good enough English. You must belong here. Come on in."
Yeah.
So I definitely don't.
Bad
think
upset.
Well, but
Bad
there definitely
upset.
weren't a lot of local people there. It was a
Yeah.
foreign crowd. Sure.
Yeah, but local people also speak quite good English. So that's,
Well, I've just exposed a security hole. You're going to have stronger security next year. Oh, well. But all I got to do is eat at the food court. I don't think it was that damaging.
yeah, of course, and actually, I also helped some people to get in without tickets because they were just willing to hang out with other people, with other guys. So
sure.
why not?
And one thing here at the HCPP that I like in theory, I couldn't verify because I was sitting down here and then the aquarium, are the hands-on workshops. So I think there was every day 5 different workshops with like really experience, hands-on experience. What are your thoughts on these?
We wanted to organize workshop this year, but unfortunately, as usual, you want to do something and there's just too much. Like
right.
you need to stick to. You need to make your core event proper and very high quality because again, people are paying money. People
Yeah,
are traveling
that's true.
a lot.
Deliver the
You
value.
know, when I hear that the guy is flying from New Zealand to Honey Badger, it's like, I think
What?
it's from New Zealand, like it's 24-hour trip. If he's lucky, you know, for some of them it's like even more. And of course you want to make at least your core event very on a very high scale of quality. So that's kind of important. But definitely next year we're thinking of organizing a few workshops prior to the event. So basically we have event on Saturday and Sunday, and maybe on Friday those who want to participate, those who will fly in earlier in Riga, maybe they will be able to go to some kind of workshops, I don't know, developers and something like that. It's interesting idea, and I see that there's demand for that, and hopefully we will be able to do that as well.
Well, that sounds great. And Max, you also work at HODL, a Bitcoin
Yeah.
exchange. Do you want to just tell the people briefly what you guys do and what's it about?
Yeah, well, HODL is peer-to-peer non-custodial exchange. So basically, it's in between, as we say, in between local bitcoins and BISC. So we're still web-based, like local bitcoins, but we use multi-sig escrow accounts. So we're a non-custodial exchange like BISC. So it's in the middle, and we don't hold any user funds, nor crypto, nor fiat. So for each trade, we just create a unique escrow account on public blockchain, Bitcoin or Litecoin. And so from a security perspective, it's way more safer than trusting your money to the centralized storage system like in local Bitcoins, because eventually you just trade in their wallet. So in our case, we only have one key to the multisig. So even in case we are compromised, the money won't be moved because you are able to move it only having 2 keys. So we have only one, and that's way more secure and safer.
And I personally absolutely love the concept of decentralized and peer-to-peer exchanges, right? So I, for a long time, only I buy my couple Satoshis on BISC and HODL. So for me personally, that is a trade-off I'm willing to take. Do you think that, long-term speaking, that centralized exchanges do still have a marketplace?
I think, yeah, I think the majority of people, even in crypto, who are like in crypto not for the first year, they prefer centralized exchange because it's good for day traders, and there's a lot of day traders. Peer-to-peer exchanges are good when you need to sell without giving your ID to some kind of man or third party. They're good if you want to HODL. So basically, if you want to buy your first Bitcoin and HODL, they're good for that. But for day trading and day trading accounts, I think for like 90% of the whole official market that we see, because there's also OTC market, which is like 3 times bigger than the official market that we see. And day trading is still good, and I think people will be using centralized exchanges, and there will be more users, at least as I see in upcoming years, for centralized exchange than for we don't say about HODL that we are decentralized, we are not custodial, because the only decentralized exchange is actually, I think it's BISC. Yeah, so we say that because we are like not competing with each other. We're just building like a proper solutions. Both of companies, both of teams are building a proper solutions where people they're just trading directly from their wallets using the escrow system. So yeah, I think you see that centralized exchanges are getting hacked each year. Still, there's the amount of users increasing each year. So people don't care, literally. Literal people don't care because well, because it's easier, it's simpler. You just go to exchange, you can trade. There's like an exchange engine, trading engine. It's easier. And on the peer-to-peer exchange, it's a bit more complicated.
All right, and what about next year's Baltic Honey Badger Conference? And we mentioned when we talked just a couple weeks ago, I think it was, that you might do an Africa conference. So any new news on that, and any announcement about next year?
We're definitely doing Baltic Honey Badger, and it's like cut in the stone in Riga, most probably September. So, but we are thinking of expanding brand outside the Europe, basically. So maybe 2 conferences somewhere not in Europe. So most probably we're picking between Africa, Middle East, and Asia, because we want to have some kind of exotic place. And
that is the most important question. Beaches.
Yeah.
When beaches.
Yeah, good weather and something like that as well. So we're thinking about it. Maybe it will be like 1-day conference, or maybe it will be like easier because again, good weather, beaches, and all other stuff. So people want to relax. But we're thinking about it, and actually we keep speaking with partners that are willing to help us to organize in different locations. So. Hopefully by the beginning of next year we will be able to say that whether we're doing that or no, and who knows. But we like had a talk between organizers, and we thought that the second conference during the year would be good, but it's the maximum that we will do. We won't do Honey Badger each month because the quality of event will decrease drastically with that, and it's maximum 2 conferences during the year. We'll see.
All right, that sounds great, Max. And just where can people follow you on Twitter? Where can they learn more about the Baltic Honey Badger?
In Twitter, we post any news regarding the Baltic Honey Badger and HODL on our Twitter handle, HODL. So it's quite simple. My personal Twitter account is KDunM, so it's basically my surname and my first letter of my name in the end. So in one word, KDunM. So and follow us on Twitter to get some news and updates on upcoming Honey Badger conferences and upcoming future release. We have many interesting things coming on our exchange up until the end of this year. So in the upcoming months we will have like major features rolling up to our exchange. So we think these features could be really interesting for a community and beneficial for Bitcoin ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. Let us know as soon as these features are made public, and then we can see if they're good, and if they are, we're going to continue the shilling.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Been a pleasure, and keep it up.
Pleasure.
So, we've done 3 hours, pretty much straight 3 hours in the first session. We're already at 2.5 hours.
Yep.
So it's been a while.
I think
it's
so.
A long time. The question is, are there still people interested in talking to us?
I'm not so sure, and I think we're pretty much near the end of this here. We just talked to the organizer of the previous conference we went to. We started this off by talking to one of the organizers here at HCPP. It's starting to get very thick in here, the air. Once again, come on down, Dan.
Swim my way through.
We'll get a little adjust on the camera there. Thank you, Ryan. And thanks to, we've got Theo and Nindy out in the hall. They're our heroes who have been bringing us all the speakers that you've seen have been brought to us by people. It's part of the magic. Obviously, when I'm in here, I can't be out there bringing people in. And it's just been a great time. We've been publishing all these live stream videos. Everyone give us a thumbs up and a share. I think we pretty much did it. We had it on our list when we started this conference. We wanted to talk to Eric Lombroso, Peter Todd, definitely Adolfo Linares, Giacomo. I missed him. Yeah, I wasn't here for that. Maybe, once again, he's not going to know who I am now. He was going to say, oh, I was on the World Crypto Network. I didn't see that mad Bitcoins character at all. I talked to good old Max. But maybe he'll know who I am next time. But yeah, we had all the speakers that I think we wanted. We talked to a bunch of the sponsors here at HCPP. And again, this conference couldn't happen without the sponsors. It couldn't happen without the crew and the people who take their time to organize it. They don't get a lot of credit for that, but we see them running around here with the red shirts.
Fishing out speakers.
Absolutely, and they usually seem well stressed out. I know Max was just saying that he's still tired from the Riga conference 2 weeks ago, and these things just take a toll on you. Yeah. But we really enjoy being here at HCPP at Paralelní Polis in Prague. We did 3 hours the first day, 5 hours the second day. I know we did 3 hours earlier, and then I guess it's 7 o'clock now, maybe another 3. That sounds like 6,
all
11,
the hours.
14.
All
yeah,
the hours.
That sounds like 14, 15 hours over 3 days of content. So I know the audience, you might be a little overwhelmed, but remember, you can always go back later, watch it on high speed. We're going to get this converted over to audio podcast. You'll be able to listen to it in the background. You can do some gardening or some bike riding, maybe even take a shower. This room feels like we need to take a shower. There's no ventilation, and it's very small. Yeah. It's humid. We're in the basement.
Yeah. You do not want to be stuck in a glass aquarium with a bunch of cypherpunks and nerds.
I know, all day long, and it just, I get in here and I'm already a little tired, and then the air just makes me feel more tired, and it's got that sauna kind of feeling to it, that thick, heavy, sweaty feeling.
A lovely musty smell.
So I think we're going to head towards the end of the show and towards the end of our live conference coverage here. Max, what did you enjoy about the conference? Give us like one more kind of closing antidote here.
Well, you know, that's the thing with covering these conferences as media. You don't experience too much of it. So I didn't watch any of the talks, which gives me much more time to watch these talks than as a recording. 2x speed, of course. So that's nice. That's going to extend my conference experience a lot, which I think is quite cool. But of course, the people here are what I come for. And the amazing conversations, both on camera, which is nice, but honestly, like that. I'm sorry, we do our best, but these conversations are like almost nothing compared to the cool stuff that you can talk like freely in a loose conversation in the hallways.
Hallway track.
So that is really something. Just getting to know these people and really feeling on what this community is all about. Because yes, Bitcoin is like a nice blockchain, has a currency, but it's much more about the Schelling point. It's much more about the community effort and the true fundamental values of why we are in this. And you know, being at conferences like the Baltic Honey Badger, right? Being at conferences like here HCPP, it gives me so much hope, and gives me it warms my heart to see that there's so many people dedicated on bringing us liberty on this planet in our lifetimes, and it is truly beautiful and heartwarming. So the community is what I'm here for, and the community is what I will be back for. Absolutely.
And Dan, Crypto Raptor, what was your favorite part of the conference? What stuck out to you? What really?
Oh well, to be honest, like the fact that I remember most of it, because if I wasn't helping you guys, then I would have been drunk on the sidelines, just leaning against people in the hallway and just like shilling shitcoins. So I'm only converting. You know, I'm turning more Bitcoin maximalist day by day.
All right.
The shitcoinism is it's shrinking a bit, but it's just been an incredible incredible conference, and you know, just sitting next to some of the greatest minds in crypto has been just mind-boggling incredible. So, you know, as well as thanking HCPP for you know, organising it, also you guys as well. You know, Ryan, for your efforts as well behind the scenes, smashing it there. And both, you know, Max and yourself, Tom, for inviting me to help out, and you know, anything I can do to kind of contribute to the cause is excellent. Then also, just to clear, because there's always loads of confusion around what I call myself, and so I've kind of gone through loads of little personality changes, like through crypto, and so I'm actually Cryptopoly on Twitter, which is also Satoshi Swagamoto, and also Cryptoraptor. So you probably won't find me as Cryptoraptor on Twitter, but I'm usually Satoshi Swagamoto and Cryptopoly. But I'm going to do some sort of name thing and maybe like relaunch myself, maybe fork myself or something like that.
Is it going to be what was not exploitative, but a contentious contentious
self-fork,
or might it be like
contentious self-fork,
like the
or a hard spoon?
Well, I guess for spooning you need to have two people. So your choice.
Speaking of that.
So if you do want to check out any of my raps, check out Cryptopoly on Twitter, and then you'll find pinned like my the first rap I did, which was when I hurled myself full-time into crypto after finishing work. And you know, since then it's just been, I mean, I've been in crypto since 2013, and I'm not, you know, the bull run obviously helped stuff in 2017. But the last year has just been incredible. I've gone, you know, all over the world on crypto conferences, met the most incredible people, had the most incredible conversations, and everything has literally been incredible and will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. And I just literally can't imagine what life would be like. I can't imagine how boring life would be like if I didn't have Bitcoin and crypto in it. And it's just, yeah, thank everyone. Thank you all. Thank all organisers, you guys, absolutely everyone out there for making all this happen and producing all this happiness.
That's right. And my favorite part about the conference really was that last interview I did with Adolfo. He was so animated and so excited, so well informed. It was hard for me to get a few words in edgewise, but to have him agree with us and to talk to us about privacy and the drug war and what's going on in Panama, where they have no central bank, where they won't allow their government to print fiat money for over 100 years, where they have gold and silver, and everyone puzzles at them as why they can survive without a central bank, might be a model for the rest of us in the future. My other favorite part is I just started out doing these Mad Bitcoin show, and is in my closet with a green screen and a funny hat and goggles. And out here, I just wear my normal clothes, but so many people come up to me and they say, "Thank you, I love your shows, I watched them forever, I learned all kinds of things, I got into crypto, I laughed." And I just really appreciate that. I'm not a celebrity in the real world, but when I go to a Bitcoin conference, people recognize me and they say nice things to me, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody at home who gives us a thumbs up and the share, who comes back later and comments or timestamps their favorite part of the video, or even just joining us in the live chat all day. You make this show possible. Like Ryan said, we do this for the 15-year-old kid who can't travel. I put pictures on my Twitter a lot of the great things I get to see here in Europe, and I think about the guy that's stuck at his desk, because I was certainly stuck at my desk for 7 years, and I never went on any vacations anywhere. So to get to see even just a little bit of the world is amazing. And of course, thanks to my friends in Derby and other parts of England who hosted me and who helped me come over here and let me stay in their hotel rooms even though I snore loudly, and all these other people who let me sleep on their couches really make this possible. The donations help a lot, the Patreons help a lot, even just watching YouTube and putting up with the ads helps a lot. So just thanks to everybody. I think we're going to head to the end. Theo, do you want to come in and just say goodbye?
Sure.
I see you standing over there. And other people, if they wanted to be on camera, I'd have them. But good old Theo is here too.
I'm here too. I'm supporting a little in the background.
What's your favorite part of the conference? Give us a story.
My favorite part of the conference, I think today, what was his name again?
Adolfo.
And Adolfo told me one of my favorite parts of the conference was just over here before he came on. Adolfo said that his friends call him Al Fulo or
Aw.
something as a joke.
Huh.
That was pretty funny. And he was, that was
Good
a
joke, man. I mean, like,
that was a highlight. And another highlight was today. So today's highlight was so he was on a panel with another woman, which I can't remember her name right now, but she has done a lot of research about money laundering. She just did a whole talk about how to money launder, which was really interesting. But it was like explaining how it really works. And she did say, please don't use it in a bad way. And that was a favorite part. I think that, let's see, yesterday.
I liked it when you
Yeah.
and Jorg and Ksenia and Rianne were all in here. We had a big chat together.
That's
a lot
true.
of World Crypto Network people and the Room 77 from Berlin guy who took Bitcoin early. Like he said, that provided a real positive story about Bitcoin at a time when whenever you told someone you're into Bitcoin, they say, oh, you must be into drugs and the Silk Road. And I'm like, no, I just like to get bacon cheeseburgers at Room 77. That's what I'm about.
So I have a question. Maybe somebody can help me. What's one of the headlines from crypto today that happened that we missed when we're at the conference? Anything?
It's all
What
about
is?
This is the headline. This live
You are
stream
in it. You're
is the
swimming in
headline.
it.
Okay,
The
great.
heat down here. Obviously, the big Chinese hardware hack story. We're still reeling. We're still trying.
Oh, the
People are
little
trying-
chip or whatever.
Yeah, the little chip that can bypass all security and may or may not be in thousands of motherboards everywhere is a big story, much bigger than people think. A software hack is they get in once and you kick them out. A hardware hack, you have to tear out all your hardware and you have to test things in a whole new way. And whether or not we or the CIA or whatever people did it before, governments are doing it to each other, this seems like a very, very, very big hack. We're only now starting to understand it. Apple and Amazon are saying that it didn't happen and it's not real, but they haven't filed any lawsuits yet. So we'll see if they file the lawsuits. Otherwise, it may be very real. It's much bigger than you think because it's inside the hardware. It's just starting to get out there, I think. So.
Okay, right on. So, another highlight yesterday was, of course, the party after the conference. That was pretty good.
It was.
It's important to meet people in real life and interact with them.
Need space.
And not just online. So that's really good.
I often used to argue the other side of that online was enough and I can watch the live stream and I don't have to go anywhere, and then they drag me out into the world and I end up having a good time anyway. You have to get over that initial I don't want to go anywhere thing, but once you get out, it's pretty nice out there in the world. There are more
Right.
good people than bad people.
So all of you in
if
the
you're
basement.
lost and your phone doesn't work, people will take care of you. They'll help you. You just have to let them know like what you need. Like, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm lost, please help me. And there are people out there, as long as you have your towel, they'll help you.
Right, so all of you crypto freaks in the basement trying to trade on BitMEX or whatever in your basement.
Get that leverage.
Doing,
That's what I'm saying.
doing from America using 2 VPNs.
Makes it cleaner that
You
way.
should actually, maybe go out
Use
in the
3
real world
VPNs.
sometimes. And maybe for you, a conference can be a safe space because,
Yeah, yep.
it's still all the freaks here.
Yeah, you're among friends.
So you're not
fellow
really taking
freaks.
a big risk.
Yeah.
It's mostly dudes. So
Yeah, mostly
beards.
Dudes with beards, yeah, it seems to be a running
Another
theme.
Amish
Yeah,
boy
yeah.
So another I don't know if I would say a highlight, a discussion point is public mask wearing. Yeah, so that's been a theme here. So I've seen more like someone with a medical mask or this really cool kind of like looks like cyber gothic black mask. It reminds me of cyber gothic raver types, and it's like I don't know. And it's kind of like a gimmick to me, or it is a gimmick to me. I get it that you don't want to have your face. That's fine, but if you hang around here enough, eventually you're going to have to eat and drink, and out put 2 and 2 together.
Could be like Ksenia and drink from a straw through the mask.
I mean, but it is a fun gimmick. I get it. Funds are safe, and it's kind of like, so I would say instead of funds are safe, mask is safe, and mask is seifu, and maybe that's the name. I mean, what I should have done is I should have ordered a pack of 100 masks from China for like less than 1 cent each, and stamped like a Bitcoin symbol or a privacy symbol or something, and sold them here as limited edition for, I don't know, 20 euro each. And then we could all party, and our hookers and blow fund would be full.
If only we had a foundation to raise the kind of money that we need to party.
Yes, we're forking the B Foundation.
Party Foundation.
This is the HB Foundation, Hookers and Blow Foundation.
Only need to change one letter.
I think there already was a fork of it. Somebody posted on Twitter. This is the B Cash Foundation or something like that. But that doesn't make. Of course, that's probably a joke. It's B Cash Foundation.
I think it's pronounced bitch.
Yeah, you could shorten it. You could shorten it.
Brevity.
I'm trying to think of a topic to ask you guys questions with. But
although we're ending, Theo.
I know we're ending. That's why, no.
This is your exit question. Yes,
no. Check this out. That's why I want to have a structured end. That's why I'm doing this. So we're gonna.
That's what she said.
Oh shit! Damn. Mad
Saving
Bitcoins.
that one up, man.
Mad
Got a lot
comedy.
of those.
That was good. So I don't really have one.
What year is the last block?
No, we have the. We'll do that. So instead of doing the Crypto Group, a European original, the sharpest satoshis, the biggest pumps, the hugest dumps. Mask is Seifu.
Mask is Seifu. Sabu is a rat.
Yeah.
Keep it secret. Keep it
We're
safe.
ending, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost over. Forced prediction. The Bitcoin price in 1 week, over 6,500 or under 6,500? Your answer now.
Over.
Higher.
Right where it should be.
Studio audience?
Over.
8,000.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot. Make sure to give us a thumbs up and comment
None of us have
below.
any